Yeah, that's a mic pointed at you by me. We don't know each other. I seen your likes. I seen your listen count. I know what you are. I know we got a particular show in common. Yeah, you could go for that X. Listen, that's me holstering my terrible accent. But you gotta know that my accents are better than yours on my worst day. So you could go for that X. I'll even let you pause. I won't force a man to listen when he's not paying attention. I will attempt to make you laugh, but I know better than most there's no guarantees that you're gonna laugh with me. Or laugh with me at my own expense. Or you can keep playing this podcast, subscribe, leave one simple like, and you'll surely love it. Make your choice. Wait, well, hold on a sec. Well, golly, if it isn't the pinky to my swear, the key to my exit strategy, and the itch in this here little trigger finger, it's Carol.
They keep getting better and better, the intros. That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I was just so inspired by John Dory for the last 2 episodes, by the way. So
yes, yeah. Even when he captures somebody, it's like he has to give a little dissertation.
At least once per episode.
Once per episode, so they know what their options are. You could do this, could do that.
Or you could just mosey on. That's fine. You can go.
Mm-hmm.
Just know, I got my trigger finger on you.
Gosh. I knew when he handed those guns to Morgan, I was like, this isn't good. Keep those guns on you. Keep those on you.
Yeah, we want to see the blam blam. Which is, it's such a interesting conundrum too, if you think about it. It was asked on Talking Dead as well. Like, would you rather him go ape or be the peaceful warrior?
What was the outcome of that poll? Was it a poll?
It should have been. I don't even know if they had one poll yet on Talking Dead.
I was going to say they haven't lately. They have not.
I'm
not sure why.
I mean, I remember when the formula used to be drastically different because they weren't even sure if anybody was going to watch.
Yeah, I guess.
What was it? Was it called Talking Dead? I thought maybe at one point it was called Talking Fear. I think on the first season.
Was it really?
I'm not sure, but now I think they're just putting it under the same banner.
They're putting it, now they just put it under the same banner to the point that, I mean, if I were to go on my DVR, it's like Talking Dead episode like 21 or something. You know what I mean? It's like they lump it all under the same kind of umbrella.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's fine. I think they try to go the full formula, but the good thing that they're doing with Talking Dead for when it comes to Fear the Walking Dead is they're trying to cram as much in as possible, like in terms of question answer. Yeah, really going in on the series because I think they really want to bring it out. They want to get people like their attention spans. Yeah. I don't want to make it seem like there's not enough people to do a poll, but maybe it's just not what people are interested in. I mean, the audience is going to be vastly different anyway. So.
Right, yeah. I think that they just kind of figured, you know what, like, well, let's not go there, because they don't necessarily know yet how big that audience is, especially because obviously the first few seasons were, touch and go. So, maybe in future seasons, based on how successful this season's going, but yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, maybe. But there's something to be said about audience participation, so maybe that's the wrong tack. Maybe they should be doing more audience participation. Maybe if they feel like they're part of the show, maybe they'll be more inspired to stick with it or get more people involved, get really interested in it, feel like they're invested in a different way. I don't know. Man, whatever works, man. Whatever works. I don't know. I may just go in and out of this accent all night. I don't know.
Yeah, like I just might.
I'm honestly terrified.
Oh, John Dory. Yeah. I have many thoughts on that last scene. Many thoughts.
God, we're gonna have to go. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Let's start from that. Hey, so remember when he? No. No.
We're not gonna do that.
We have order, and we must uphold to that order.
Yes.
So, where would you like to start? Because I got notes. I got notes all day.
You got notes all day.
I could jump here. I could jump there. I could jump everywhere.
We could start at the start.
Boogie.
Interesting how this episode does again the before and now.
Yeah, did they actually put the words before and now? Oh,
yes,
they did. Was that in the first episode, or did they do that consistently? Because I thought they more or less phased in and out after the first episode or something. Oh my God, they did it again.
See, you're going to be going in and out all night.
Oh my God. Okay.
Now, when they first started doing that before and now was episode 2, I want to say, when it was Another Day in the Diamond. I don't think that they did before and now in the episode where Nick was killed. I don't think they did that.
Right. So maybe it was just the 2 episodes.
Which I mean, it's fine. I don't know if they really need it because to me it's very clear the way it's shot because like the now is so gray and washed out and then the before is like kind of like yellow rainbow tint, colorful. So I'm very clear on like, okay, this was before and this is now, but I'm fine with it.
Well, I think the reason why they may have done it, it's not a really good one, but they only really cut away from present to past once. So it's they start in the future, they go into the past for almost the entire episode until the end.
Mm-hmm.
They could have done that for Laura, but really that whole thing was done in the past.
Right.
And they only brought it to the future at the end to kind of signify a retelling that John Dory was kind of going through his memories of Laura until now. Oh my God, right. I feel like I'm slipping into the accent again. to Morgan, though.
It's kind of easy to slide into it. I can see how it would be easy to.
Well, I kind of need more practice more with the accent. I feel like I've been slipping. When I was a kid, I used to do accents all the time, like cartoon characters and stuff like that. I always thought I'd get into that. And look where I am now.
And look, you missed your calling. It's something you could have really taken. Taking it to a whole other level.
Shoot.
There's still time. There's still time. You never know.
Maybe I'll get my second win.
Exactly.
Okay, so we got to talk about that first scene. The same scene that I just retold in the intro, except not that at all. You know, because John Dory meets that one vulture in that store.
Yes, and we realize they're a vulture because they're basically stripping everything. They're taking fluorescent tubes out. They're even taking off the hardware from the door. I mean, just...
the hinges, yeah.
Yeah, like I just kind of wondered, I mean, gosh, that...
Even the bell, by the way.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have to give it to Michael Satrazemis and Adam Sushitsky. I love these little shots, that upward shot of him going and getting the fluorescent lights and then looking down from the perspective of the bell. And I felt like I was almost in a Breaking Bad episode. Have you ever seen Breaking Bad? You will.
I'm... Yeah, it's one of those shows that like I got interested in way after the fact, and then I was like, I'm not going to be able to pick this up.
It's intense. Yeah, I have to admit, you kind of have to stick with it. For the first season, to be honest.
Yeah, you pretty much do.
And
from what I've heard.
And then once it's a climbing up a roller coaster, but once it goes down, it's just a free fall. It's crazy, and you won't be able to stop. I think it was 5, I want to say.
That's
4.
not that much, actually.
Yeah, 5. I struggle because I know some of the seasons were shorter than others. But yeah, it's pretty intense. So, but what I mean by that is that there was a particular way, and even to the point of the color tones. In the last season, they had a couple. It was basically a flashback season as well. Now I'm starting to see where they picked it up from. Warm in the past and then colder in the future, bluish gray, washed out kind of thing. But yeah, and so the specific shots that they used throughout entire Breaking Bad, they used a lot of wide shots where appropriate, and it just kind of painted the scene a lot more bizarrely, and they do that on a smaller scale here, but I think they've really focused more on cinematics than anything else, and color, saturation, contrast. And point of view. So I really enjoyed that first scene because of that. Because it tells a little bit of a story. It tells how quirky this guy is and what he's doing. And how they all must be, trying to pick the bones off of these stores.
Off everything.
Yeah.
And for what purposes?
Yeah,
I mean, that's my thing.
I was seriously wondering that when I was taking notes last night. I'm like, why? Like, what is all that about? It's a twofold question because, number one, yeah, they do that. And what are they using it for? To what end? Are they building some monster machine that they're going to use? Or like, what if they built like a little technodrome full of this stuff?
Right.
And they're planning on living somewhere, but that's not how they roll, so...
Right. Like, that's my thing. I'm like, what are you doing with all of these scraps? Like, what in the world is it all being used for?
Yeah, and there's a second-fold question actually kind of brings us to this encounter with this guy and John Dory. And that's for all the silliness and the way we look at these vultures as these kind of almost like ridiculous people, right? They dress really ridiculous. They do ridiculous things when it comes to picking, stores and what have you dry. And then they clearly meet this guy. This one guy meets this guy, John Dory. He knows there's no opportunity to get him if he wanted to. And yet he takes the risk of trying to take out John Dory anyway. So now I'm confused. It's like, what is this guy protecting? Why would he try to risk his life for what end? You know what I mean? I was seriously wondering that.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I don't know. This episode left me with a lot of questions, for sure. I'm still not entirely clear of what is the end game of the vultures. Because it's not just about food and goods. If it was just food and goods, then fine. that'd be one thing. You pillage, you take what you need in terms of food, medical supplies, whatever. But the fact that they go to that level, I'm just not clear on why. Why to that point, and for what?
You're saying to that limit in terms of what they take, or like
just
or how desperate they're becoming.
I mean, is it because of desperation? Is it part of a bigger picture of what they can do? I mean, look. I don't know. I mean, look at in the Walking Dead universe, Jadis and the trash people. I mean, in their sense, it's like they built this society out of trash, and walls out of trash. So I mean, potentially, sure, everything could have some sort of use.
But they're traveling all with it, so that's the weird thing about it.
Yeah, they're not settled.
And that's the weird thing also, is that they're traveling with this stuff. Mm-hmm. Their whole thing is all about travel, never settling down. And so it's this weird dichotomy of this hipster hoarder cult.
Yeah.
So it's just so bizarre. And especially if you consider the fact that they're like nomads. Traveling with all this stuff, you'd think they want to travel light. But
yes.
And maybe that's intentional, maybe that's to show how silly these people are, but we have to consider one more thing, is that, and this kind of does go back to what I've been mentioning, and it's really only shown how prevalent this idea is in this episode, and it's that in the past you don't see them flash a weapon whatsoever. They don't show their weapons at all.
No.
In the past scenes, never.
I'm not necessarily sure like how formidable of a threat they are. I mean, they're formidable in numbers.
Oh yeah.
Even at the end
power.
Even in the end when this like caravan of cars shows up, I mean, it's intimidating. It's like, what are all these vehicles filled with people just showing up? That is definitely very menacing.
Right.
But
and maybe that's just for us too, because if you think about it, we're conditioned a certain way to expect the worst, right?
Right. Yeah, no, true.
So maybe they're just trying to screw with us.
And the thing that struck me also, and I know we're jumping around here because this is more towards the end, but the expression on Mel's face when he came out was of anguish,
anguish, of anger, yeah. And oh my God, we'll definitely get into that. And that's kind of what I'm latching onto, is that it's only now in the future scenes in this episode that we see guns, even in the first scene.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
And I'm actually even wondering further, because it may not just be that in the past they didn't have weapons, but in the future when we see Ennis, I don't recall him having a weapon.
No, I don't recall either.
So could this have been a recent advent as a result of Ennis's death,
I mean, perhaps. I mean, it could be.
And if that's the case,
I mean, because we're still not clear what happened at the stadium.
True. No, that's what I was going to get to. And because if that's the case, if this is only a recent escalation as a result of Ennis's death, then maybe the idea that whatever happened at the stadium has nothing to do with them.
I mean, it's an interesting idea.
Even though, and I'll say this out front right now, we do see in one of the sneak peeks for this coming episode that Mel is in some sort of bed and he's handcuffed to it, the headboard, and he gets out and he's with Naomi. So this could have been slightly after the diamond, maybe, but I'm wondering first of all, how do we get there?
Right.
It's the tone of that scene, I think, is still warm, so it is in the past, obviously. Somewhere between the past and the present. Right. But yeah, that is interesting. It could be that these guys really weren't a threat. And maybe it's something that Mel has said in this episode. And spoiler alert, the Vultures end up leaving because of what the group brings back from the FEMA center. Right. And Mel leaves Madison with this one final bit of advice, because he can't leave without giving advice, right? In my experience, you never see the bad stuff coming. Right. And so that signals to me that maybe it has nothing to do with them. I mean, even though you see certain scenes with Alicia and all that, but right. Alicia's reaction to seeing, No, it's a good point. It's a very good point. Like I said, I have a lot of questions for how involved the Vultures were in whatever it is that happened at the stadium. Yeah. To be perfectly honest, I am far more concerned with Naomi's role in all of this. Oh, really? Because I'm going to tell you one thing. Okay. I'm not. But you know what I am more concerned of? Okay. Althea. I can see that also. I can see that. Yeah. Yeah. And we will definitely get into that, but yeah. Yeah, because she did not seem fazed in the least when they had that confrontation. Well, there's reasons for that. I have a theory on why it's like that. But, okay. But there's more to it. Okay. I'm so cryptic. Well, as this show is. Yes, and that I think that's what's made it so good this season. I think is that rather than tell a story just straightforwardly, the way they've been doing the last few seasons, this season they're really taking time to craft something interesting. It's funny, like some people are saying on our Facebook that the whole time jumping thing is just a gimmick. I'm saying it's not just the time jump, it's the way they're crafting the story. Like, it's one thing if they jump back and forth between time and they use that as a simple gimmick of trying to keep us guessing. But it's what happens between the time jumps and how you slowly can start to see minuscule connections, that they're barely connections, but you can start to make sense out of what's happening, what had gone on too. And so I love how they're weaving the story together.
No, exactly. I think it's effective. I don't think it's gimmicky. I think that they're trying to do this to kind of guide us to kind of put all the pieces together, and I appreciate it.
And they're being clever about it, which is more important than anything.
It can be done poorly and it can be done well, and I think it's being done effectively in this case. And I like the continuity in terms of certain things. I mean, even after they return from the FEMA center with the supplies, we see Madison basically tell Alicia, like, okay, you know, go to the Range Rover, pack this stuff and whatever, just in case, you know,
right.
Just, you know. And then we go to the now, the present, and who shows up in that Range Rover but Naomi. So it's sort of like, okay, how did this happen? How is it that we got from that point to this point? We see the links, but we still don't know how those links happened.
Right. The circumstances that led to it. And, it could be anything. The sky's really the limit.
Yeah, definitely.
But we know the just-in-case plan went out the window somewhere.
Right, exactly.
That's all we know.
That's all we know.
Or maybe, I don't know, maybe we're assuming a lot.
Did you think when Mel's walkie-talkie went off, and you heard the female voice, did you think it was Madison, or did you think it was Naomi, or did you not know at all who it was?
On my first watch, I had no idea, but on my second watch, I'm like, oh, that's clearly Naomi.
Really, the first watch, I thought for a second it might be Madison. I was like, oh my God,
hoping, but, yeah.
I was hoping, and then I was like, okay, no. But that also led me to see, like, obviously Naomi has some sort of a significant enough role in this group that she was kind of more the leader in that, like, because the message sent on the walkie-talkie was what's the holdup, you know,
yeah.
which is not that's some kind of comment that would come from a person who's more directing what's happening, you know.
Yeah, not somebody that's timid and flighty and cowardly.
Not at all. Not at all.
You know what's interesting is that this is something I had said when we first met Naomi. I do have this fear in the back of my mind, and this is just, I don't know.
It is a show called Fear, so...
yeah, that's true. It's funny how you don't think about that, but I thought that maybe she was a chameleon of some kind.
And it turns out she is. I mean, to an extent. I mean, we've seen her be with John Dory, but I'm getting the semblance that was sincere,
right?
You know, because
from what we're seeing,
because she very easily could have been very aloof in seeing him, but you know, she definitely seemed like she was concerned and sincerely surprised that he was there. But in terms of her relationship with everybody else, questionable.
Right? Who knows? Right. That's the thing. If we hadn't seen this episode, I'd be more inclined to say she is more of a chameleon. But after seeing this episode, I mean, I do believe that the whole daughter story, the FEMA thing, Madison and Strand showed up after we'd seen the scene of her attempting to try to put down the walkers that she'd left behind, the people that she basically let down. And she can't do it. And that's between her and us as watchers. So I think there's a genuineness to it. I think she had a daughter. I think she turned. I think she made everybody sick. And... you know, they all died. So.
God, that's so freaky. Reminded me of the prison on Walking Dead. Remember that time in the prison?
Oh, I remember
when they started getting sick.
Oh yeah.
See that? Don't even get me started on contagions and things like that. That is.
Do you have one?
No. But I always tell people, as much as I watch this show and I love this show, I always tell people that this is my biggest fear. I'm not afraid
okay.
I'm not afraid of vampires, werewolves, like Jason, Freddy, none of that stuff. But
you're afraid of contagion and apocalypse.
I'm afraid of apocalypse and zombies, and they're like, and people ask me why. I'm like, well, because that legitimately could happen. And they're like, oh, people legitimately could turn into zombies. I was like, well, not necessarily that, but the idea of an outbreak of a contagion, kind of
zero.
Yes, that kind of stuff freaks me out. Fun fact: when the whole maybe fun
totally
fact,
fun.
maybe not fun. I should go back.
Woo!
Maybe not fun. So God, I love that thing. By the way, that noise. So stupid.
You're welcome.
But I had a work trip one time where I had to go to Texas for something. And so the first reported U.S. case ended up being in Texas. And I was like, hell no.
I was like, where's my one-way ticket?
No,
Back.
not going. Oh, I didn't even get on the plane. I was like, I'm not going to Texas. Get out of here.
Oh my God. You know, I'll tell you a secret. I don't even know if this is a secret. I really don't tell people this much, but now I'm going to tell the world. Is that my biggest fear is a mob. You know, that sort of thing, mob mentality.
I could see that. I can see that.
So if you see like movies like, I think it was the Fog, I think it was, or The Mist. I keep getting confused between the two.
Okay.
And you see the crowd getting whooped up. That sort of thing, that mentality frightens the hell out of me.
But you know what? I could see that though. I could see how that would be very scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's justifiable.
Yeah, it's the ability for people to not really think clearly and lose their judgment, and then you never know if it's going to turn on you. That thing, and you know what? It seeps into other arenas, like being fans of, let's say, even a band. There's a part of me that can't go all the way with a certain kind of fanaticism.
No, I agree.
I can't even like, so people get whooped up about Beyonce or even like bands that I like.
Yeah,
I just can't go like, oh my God, I'm all about them. Like, well, no, I'm chill. I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm gonna retain my judgment. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I see what happens.
There's a scariness when people get to that level of fandom, or just, I don't know. It's mob mentality, and it's scary because in a state of anarchy, people will kind of almost sort of revert. Yeah, exactly. They will revert to that sort of mob mentality. If you have, somebody who is boisterous enough to and convincing enough to be a leader, and has people that are just sort of following suit, he knows
like Lord of the Flies. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's a psychological term for it, but I mean, it really is. That's a legitimate fear.
Yeah,
more legit than my Contagion.
By the way, that book is probably one of the scariest books to me. The Lord of the Flies.
It is for a lot of people. Yeah, it is for a lot of people. Probably for a similar reason.
So Contagion, Outbreak, and so you could easily see how Naomi.
I believe her story.
Yeah. So where does it change? Right? Where does it shift? Right. Where does she fall? If that's the case, if she is kind of like a mini vulture or a ninja vulture or whatever you want to call it, I'm going to call it chameleon, because. Where is that flip? Has she been playing up this act this entire time on a level? And maybe the FEMA thing was real, but there's a part of her that is, she's trying to play both sides, but she's really playing a bad game with herself. She's forcing herself to go to the FEMA thing for her own self-interest, but maybe it's also maybe she's being forced into it by the Vultures to get their trust.
It's hard to say. It's like I have a lot of questions when it comes to that, because I just don't know. Where did that change? Because even her demeanor, her appearance when she shows up in the end is not of a meek, weak person.
It's like, what the fuck, guys?
Yeah, no,
you're supposed to be here, but now you're there.
Yeah, and everything about her, like her hair and the leather jacket and everything, I'm like, it's very Mad Max to me. And I'm
leggings.
Was she wearing leggings?
When she stepped out of the van, I think it was. Oh no, it was the Land Rover.
Yeah,
She's back in the sneakers, kind of like the same sneakers but like way more louder colors. The same sneakers she had when she met John Dory. And then like it goes from the feet up, this shot, which is again like why I love the way the show was shot. Yeah, and then it pans upward from there, and like you see the wild colored leggings. And the ankle socks scrunched up. She's like half leather jacket, half Jane Fonda workout video, and then the crazy Mad Max plait in her hair and the side plait.
I'm just like, what happened?
Yeah, I don't know. When she is about to show up, Mel does say, she says something to the effect of, "Oh, you'll love this," to Alicia, meaning he knows who Naomi is, right, and what she may or may not have meant to the group, and it could even be like a Charlie thing, maybe, you're gonna love this, I screwed you again, that sort of thing. Yeah,
maybe it was a Charlie sort of thing, because Alicia obviously snapped and shot at, I imagine the intention was to shoot her, but not him,
for sure.
So I mean, she clearly just was incensed enough that she didn't hesitate. And you have to bear in mind, Alicia did spend a lot of time with Naomi one-on-one.
Oh yeah, we see that in the beginning, and that's what I was saying in the last episode, is that it feels like it almost pays to see the episodes backwards. And then if you see the scenes backwards, you'll see Alicia shoot at Naomi, and then you'll see the scene in the beginning with Naomi picking out the glass from her arm.
Right.
With no anesthetic. But it's strange. There is a closeness in the beginning of the episode, and then what made Nick kill Ennis? What made her want to, first of all, shoot at Naomi in spite of who was in the way? I mean, obviously there were people around she could have missed. Anything could have happened. But, and shot John instead. But still, what had happened? Now, I'm not saying that Naomi is directly responsible. We don't know, but obviously, at the very least, at a certain moment, she may have been. I think that they not betrayed them, but I think that there was some sort of betrayal or abandonment or something, because remember, John Dory was told by Luciana that Naomi didn't make it out of the stadium, and now here she is showing up, basically aligned with the Vultures. I mean, it seems like whatever happened at the stadium, it was assumed, or maybe Naomi played it off as like she didn't get out or whatever, or something happened to her or what have you. But obviously that's not the case. It seems to be that they were pretty sure that she was dead.
Yeah.
They basically said as much.
Yeah, they basically said as much to John.
Now, it could have been that these two things are true, that A, she somehow ran away or whatever it is, and she ran in the wrong direction. And they assume that something bad had happened to her because of that. So, but the fact that maybe she lived is a whole other story too.
Right.
She didn't deserve to live, let's say, maybe? I don't know. No.
I don't know. So. I have a lot of questions when it comes to Naomi. I mean, it's so funny because I'll be honest, I was not convinced of how vital the character or significant a character she was going to be.
Naomi.
Naomi. And she's obviously pretty damn significant.
Yeah. I'm not saying she's the key to this, but I'm saying she is definitely the key.
She's an integral part. She's definitely playing a major role, and I wonder how involved she is in terms of whatever happened to Madison.
It does beg the question.
And I say whatever happened because we still don't know. She could be alive, she could be dead. I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, let's take a minute to maybe head back to the beginning of the episode, because you do see this cool monologue scene with John Dory.
Yes.
And this kind of like Mexican standoff with this other vulture.
Very gunslinger, very Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, and maybe they even put this in there to kind of show how caricature-y and the kind of badass that he is. Just without regard to really what this vulture was even doing. Why would he even face off against John Dory? That sort of thing, like I was saying before. Maybe just for the sake of this sort of scene.
Right.
To see him shoot off a pinky.
I know. That is very specific.
Yeah. I even like John Dory's facial expressions. It's like this very badass, looking down off the brim, that sort of thing.
He does play that very well.
You gotta give him credit,
Listen, he has quickly become a fan favorite.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm seeing so many comments about people even saying they like Fear in some senses more than they like The Walking Dead. I'm finally seeing comments to that effect.
Well, we can talk about that later in the podcast.
Ooh, good, juicy.
Because obviously there's been a lot of movements on the Walking Dead area. So
yeah, bowel movements.
Yeah, jeez.
It's getting somber out there too, but yes, we will definitely get into that.
It's getting somber. Yeah.
So we're still in the future, and we see the rest of the gang, Luciana, Strand, Alicia. They're being driven around by Althea.
Right. Who still insists on wanting to know their story.
Yeah. This is what I am going to get to. But, the first thing that Alicia asks her is about the guns. And you could really sense how indignant Althea is, especially after how they tried to manipulate her. She basically does how, like, fathers always threaten, I'm going to turn this car around. So she stops the car like that. She says,
exactly.
Listen, you putz. All I need is your story. I don't need your mouth.
Yeah, and it's Luciana, I think, who's like, it's basically says she has no problem telling her story.
Yeah, Luciana seems to be kind of in the middle. There's a part of it that's probably still in like shock, and it's kind of like, what's it matter? Whatever you want.
That's all you want, and you just want to know our story. Fine, here it is.
Yeah, no big deal. Look, Nick
do
is
what
gone.
you want with it. Yeah,
whatever. We got what we got. We're gonna do what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
You might as well enjoy it.
Yeah. pretty much.
So Strand basically asks, so you're just going to sit there and watch us do our thing, and you're not going to get involved. You know, and this is really in reference to the guns. So you wouldn't use this to help us. And Althea says, quote, "It wouldn't be the first time." And then I'd like to bring you back to the end of that very episode where, you know, where Nick dies, and she's rummaging around trying to desperately find these tapes.
Yes.
Of the bog, these 24 tapes. So what's interesting to me, and this is something that they've been holding back, is there's a story there. And what I think that story is okay, remember one thing. Althea is a journalist, and what journalists don't do is they don't get involved in the subjects. You know,
they don't.
No matter what happens, even in war, they don't help out, they don't do anything, they're just supposed to be there to document.
Yep.
Now, I think there's a commentary here, and I think there may be even a regret, because I don't think this is a normal world. And Althea, I don't think, is caught up to that. Or maybe she is not acknowledging that fact and still trying to live like a journalist even when things have changed.
Right.
And I think part of that reckoning is in these tapes, is that she probably watched a whole bunch of people die and didn't lift a fucking finger. And I think she keeps these tapes, in a sense, locked up. First of all, she keeps the tapes because she's a journalist, but I also think she keeps them locked up so that people won't judge her. And maybe even still she's ashamed of it.
Yeah,
and maybe that's going to come to a head at some point.
It could be. That's an interesting theory. And I could see that, because you're right, journalists stand on the sidelines and document. Like, they do not get involved in what's going on with the subject matter. They're just there to capture the story. So it could be a situation like that where these tapes are like the only thing that's left of these people, you know.
That she may have even been able to help, and that's really my point. And that's where in a season where we're dealing with redemption and you know, trying to clean up past mistakes, I think this may be one of hers. I think this is her story, basically. I mean, even John has his story. Yeah. You know, so everybody's had baggage. Madison has had baggage throughout the series. Strand, Alicia, and Luciana to a certain extent. She had that with the Colonia. Actually, that may be the running theme throughout Fear the Walking Dead, but it's never been more focused on than it has been now. Especially when you consider the fact that these people are trying to climb out of their past behaviors and habits. So I think it's really coming to the fore. And Althea's has not been drawn out as much, but I think there will be some sort of, even if it's minor, let's say, if it weaves in a certain way. I don't think they may go hard on Althea. Maybe that was never the point with her, but maybe to a smaller extent, she's going to have her own little reckoning. I don't know. Right. I'm having a fun time thinking about it, because what could it be? Or maybe her thing is bigger than we think it is. And that's really what's getting me right now, is that it's exactly what Mel says. You're never going to see the bad stuff coming. Right. And so maybe that's Althea.
Maybe it is. I mean, it's an interesting thought.
She's a sleeper.
There's a lot of sleepers. It could be her, Naomi.
It could be Luciana. What?
Strand.
Poor Luciana? I don't know. See, that's the thing. I would not expect Strand. I think that theme has run its course.
Yeah.
You know, it can't always be Strand. You know, it just be two. It's kind of like, it can't. All that war can't be 2.5 years.
No.
Oh wait, never mind.
They really did. They really did. Thank God it's over.
So that's the two things map together. Is Strand always screwing them, and then all that war being this constant plateau crush.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but it's true with Strand. I mean, he admitted in this episode to Madison about him basically having like a backup plan.
Yeah, there you go. And which it took a while to draw out too. But yes, but I like how that's done. And let's go into that in a minute though too, because we are back with Mojo, Morgan and John.
I like that.
We have to get into that scene where he has the gun to the Vulture's head.
Yes.
You do see this starting to go to a place. It's something that you were worried about, actually. It's like, oh, is he going to get dark? You know, is he gonna...
Yeah, I was generally concerned about it, and I think he doesn't kill the man, obviously, but he does maim him and shoots his finger off, which is very precise shooting, I have to say.
I mean, when he even warns the guy, he's exposing his fear though too. He's saying, you know, I know more than anyone that, you know, one false move and it could end your life. So he's pretty honest.
He's very honest. But the minute he shoots him and like pins him against the car, like he starts going a little nutty. Starts
Where's Laura?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Laura/Naomi.
Oh no, he says Naomi, right? I don't remember.
No, I think he said Laura. I think you're right. I think he did say Laura.
Well, that's interesting. Maybe it is a little bit. And maybe that's the whole point. The whole giving the guns to Morgan to look after.
Which as soon as he did that, I was like, not a good idea.
Same here. The first watch, I was like that, definitely. I'm like, wait, what do you... Morgan,
like,
you don't need these.
I was like, no, don't give Morgan both guns. I'm like, hold on to those, John. Hold on to those guns.
That's like leaving a junkie 2 needles full of heroin.
I know. Hold these for me, mind you. I don't trust
heroin.
Myself.
And they're so pretty too.
And that was the thing. As soon as that happened, I was like, bad idea.
Right. The second time around, I did see the thoughtfulness in it, and the willingness for Morgan to recognize the trust that John is putting in him, and it's really endearing. And to see these guys become friends in such a way,
it is very endearing to see this friendship very organically sort of come together, and that there's a sincerity in how they care for each other that you see in the things that they do and the things that they say to each other. It's nice.
Let's acknowledge one more little gift to Morgan is that he's finally dealing with somebody that's not far gone. You know, there's Henry.
Yes.
And him trying to deal with other people. Oh God, the first person he tried to deal with was the wolf. The wolf?
Oh jeez,
the wolf? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was shitting my pants.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to figure out at any point Morgan it's just not going to work out for him. This guy's going to hurt him or something. And I always thought, by the way, I always thought that wolf would somehow come back in some fashion. Like, I don't know, maybe to thank him or something like that. Because he did get away, if I remember right?
Yes, I believe so.
File that under the Heath files.
Heath is coming back.
Oh,
I'm convinced of that. I'm like, that's happening.
I hope so, but who knows? Oh, man.
He's going to come back and ride off into the sunset with Rick.
Now, the letters were PP, or is it PPP?
PPP.
Yeah, PPP. Triple P.
Yep, whatever the hell that means.
Yeah, yeah. And this is where we start to get into the Strand narrative. We're back in the past.
Yes.
Dramatic before.
Yep. Very bold typeface.
Yeah, exactly. And
no script here.
And again, Alicia's being patched up by Naomi. Madison tells Naomi, how dire things kind of are. Basically, she's basically warning Naomi, you sure you want to stick around? I mean, really, you don't have to be here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love it. And it's like, Naomi's like, I do. I want to see this place succeed.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, and I think she does, but it's just kind of like, can Madison hammer the point home that this place is kind of hanging on by a thread?
By a thread. She refuses. She refuses to kind of...
she refuses to lie about it. She refuses can you at least sin of omission this shit?
Yeah. And she doesn't let anybody see her sweat.
Yeah. She's honest, but she doesn't let people see it. Yeah, and I respect that. I mean, look.
I do.
Honesty is the best policy, I suppose.
Yeah. No, yeah. I do. I respect it a lot, her approach.
I think that people really are investing into the idea of a successful stadium to the point where it really does draw in people. I think an idea can really do that, under the right circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And Madison just is killing it. So like the new Nelson Mandela of the stadium.
Oh, I know.
He's just tying people together, this idea.
Yeah.
That we can survive. But yeah, this is where things start to get a little weird because Luciana basically tells Nick that Strand and Cole seem to know where to go to where to find food since they found that car with all that stuff, right?
Right.
And then Strand is kind of like looking around. He's forced to tell Madison, I found it in the housing development. It was ready to go. I guess some poor guy just he never quite got to it.
Yeah.
And then Cole has to kind of take a beat because he's like, it's just, this guy, I don't even know what to do with him.
I know.
And Strand does follow after him, though.
Yeah.
Just like with Madison, he's trying to figure out why Cole didn't rat him out. And the key thing to take away from this is that, you know what? It's not worth it because at this point, I don't know what you're capable of.
Yeah.
This whole concrete pebble in your pocket.
Right, that he keeps carrying around with him.
Yeah, what did you do? And then to make you get to this point where you basically would bug out on all these good people to trying to do this big thing. How bad were you? So were you the kind of bad guy that took people out when it came down to it? How cruel do you have to be? So yeah, from his perspective, it's kind of like, I don't know what I'm dealing with. This guy's obviously sticking around trying to be something, but I don't want to be too close to him to find out
No.
if he needs something from me, and then I'll have to pay him back, or at the very least, and at the very worst, slit my throat in my sleep.
Oh my god.
So yeah, but Madison sees the tension between Cole and Strand, and she's like, "Let's go drink, buddy."
Right.
Thank you, Lord, for this beautiful bounty of whiskey. So,
what kind was it?
I don't know, but I later on in the episode they do mention Roswell, right?
Yes.
At the inn. I
Yes.
actually looked it up because Strand says Lagavulin, and that's a whiskey distillery, and it's a very good whiskey distillery, by the way.
That is true.
So I like their style. I'll just say that much.
I do. The Strand to me is questionable. He's always a question mark to me in terms of how sincere is he. He's always got one foot in, one foot out.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of the season, you do see him kind of drinking the Kool-Aid. He looks like almost cult member-like in.
Yeah.
You know? And then you see the getaway car with all the stuff, and it makes you think, how is he just pretending to be like that in front of everybody? And as this episode progresses, the thing that really gets me to thinking that he is different is how concerned he is about, why did you
save me?
Why did you save me? And we do get to that in the very next scene. Like he can't handle it anymore, and he's basically why
he needs to know, what did you see in me so that you wanted to save me?
On top of this whole internal struggle thing is that we are starting to find out finally a little bit more about what happened before the diamond. What happened right after the dam, and apparently she fished him out of the water. He couldn't walk right. He was basically incapacitated. Nick was incapacitated in another way,
right?
To the point where she had to go out and find Luciana.
Yeah,
that's the thing. That's really this like indomitable spirit kind of thing.
Yeah,
like, she was gone. She was not on the show, and somehow, in some way,
she found her
in this big ass world full of no people. Almost, she found Luciana to bring her back to get Nick out from his PTSD, by the way, which is what I'm feeling was his problem. Even
when they show like kind of his reaction to the idea of leaving the security of the walls, and it is very much like somebody who has like this sort of post-traumatic stress.
Yeah, so she goes crazy out of her way to save Strand. He's trying to figure it out, and I think a long time ago, even with all his faults, I think she sees his intention even back then, that the whole damn thing was for him and her and her kin. He does this crazy shady ass thing for control, but in as much as he wants to make sure his group is safe, not just him.
Right.
So that's my feeling. I really do feel like she sees the good in him, even though okay, bud, you don't have to take control of the entire dam and the whole situation with the dam just to make sure we're safe. We can just do this together. You can trust us. We can do something that's not fucked up. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I do like finding out more about where the gang has been, how they survived. It's kind of like, do you remember when we were talking about Negan's origin story?
Yes.
I didn't really need to have a flashback of Negan's past. Kind of like the governor.
Yeah.
I didn't really need that, to be honest. In fact, it made the idea of his kind of, I don't want to say evilness, but like what made him seem more implacable is the idea that there was humanity there a little bit, but I don't need to see it completely.
Right.
I just know that he's there now.
Yep.
And so to get little bits and pieces via riffing on it, that sort of thing, they're going to have to be forced to not go flashback style with where they've been from then until now. Even to the thing where they mentioned the whole Roswell thing, I like that we're getting little bits and pieces of that they've been somewhere, that they've been down this very long road, maybe like 3 years worth of travel since the outbreak, basically. So maybe that's it, by the way. And when they do mention the Roswell thing in the inn, when they're with Naomi and everything, she mentions that he mentions that it felt like 3 lifetimes ago, which makes me think, 3 might be significant here. Maybe this whole The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead universe, maybe all of this has taken place in the span of 3 years. Do you think that's even possible? I mean, that's a pretty long time. Life is long when things are kind of this dire.
Yeah, 3 years is a very long time. A lot can happen in 3 years.
Right, from outbreak until then. That's the idea. So, that's interesting.
It is interesting.
Well, let's look at some time markers. I mean, we're talking about enough time for Maggie and Glenn to fall in love, want to get married. the prison thing, for them to go to Terminus, and then finding Alexandria. Okay, I guess it makes sense in a way. I mean, all that war was that whole 2 years was a span of maybe 2 months.
Yeah.
So I guess it's plausible. So are we going to call this one? I mean, I don't know exactly what year it is. I mean, maybe that's not even important, but, I think that's a reasonable, just from watching the show, I think that's a reasonable time period, 3 years. The specific, it's been 3 lifetimes. Who says that? So, I don't know, it makes me think.
That's funny.
But yeah, anyway, so while they're up there, they hear Val, by the way, I think her name is Val, the one with the gun, Doug's wife, if you remember right, Douglas's wife. She has Naomi at gunpoint as she takes the Land Rover to try to get out. She's trying to escape.
Yes.
And
that was interesting.
Again. And Alicia's like, oh, you're going to take the Land Rover again? Does it have any gas? So what do you think about Naomi? What do you think her intentions were really initially? I mean, I have some ideas, but again, what do you think she's thinking when she tries to go out at it alone at the FEMA camp?
She always seems like a woman on a mission. But it's never quite clear what that mission is. She's on this trajectory of that she is on her way to X location. But it's almost like she does want to be chased because she leaves enough clues for them to know where she's heading.
That's a really good point, yeah.
It's not that she doesn't want to be found. Or
she followed.
Right. She leaves enough information for them to be able to. And they do. And they basically save her behind. I don't know if she does that because she knows that she was going into a dangerous situation. So here, let these guys know so that the cavalry can show up when I need them, essentially. Like I said, there's a sincerity with her that I feel that even when she walks off and wants to be alone, not really. She still wants that contact, that companionship, that sort of thing. Obviously, it worked out.
Or she wants them to follow her, basically.
Yeah.
Less than wants to be found by a random person. I think maybe specifically this group.
Specifically the group. I don't think a random person.
Let's do the math on this now that we know a little bit more about what happened.
Yes.
So, according to her, she leaves to try to get the amoxicillin for her daughter, comes back, finds out that everybody turned, right? She hadn't eaten, she hadn't slept, and then she finally found it on the 3rd day. And when she got back, it was already way too late. Her daughter was locked in a room. She must have gotten out somehow. Somebody may have opened up the door and was like, oh, hey, why, Rose?
Yeah.
What's going on? Why are you banging on the door? Oh, my God, it's a baby walker.
Oh, my God, that's so creepy.
And it got her, and it basically got her. I think, I'll get into it later. But
we have not seen baby walkers on this show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've seen in the first episode, Jeepers Creepers. Oh, we're not baby walkers, no, but children walkers, yeah.
Children walkers, yes.
Rarely, by the way, rarely, but...
I think they get a little apprehensive about showing
that. But now she finds that out. What does she do? And more importantly, when she finds out, so something must have happened on the way from finding out to being on a canoe and washing up on John Dory's shores. So a number of things could have happened. Now, the thing that I want to drill down on, really, is something that Naomi says in the last episode. I mean, I'm talking about the episode titled Laura, where John Dory finds her. The first thing she says, and I mentioned this, was, I have to get back.
Now, back to what?
Exactly. Who does she have to get back to?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, now, let's think about this. Who could it possibly be? You think what I'm thinking now? Could it be the Vultures? And could we be walking into an adult Charlie situation where she's a plant for them? Now, I don't doubt that she's sincere, or maybe into being strong-armed by the Vultures to kind of lead them out. Now, maybe this was a plan for her to lead the strongest people there, Madison and Strand, let's say the strongest willed people. It's 2 less people to hold the whole group together, and maybe this is the Vultures' way of non-violence. Let's just wait for this thing to fall, but we'll nudge it along like the Weevils. I'm sure that was them.
No, yeah, like the Weevils. Oh,
yeah, right. It showed up just when Charlie came on board.
Yeah, I wonder if that's part of the case. Is she being that tactical about it?
Even if it's really kind of dangerous for her,
Right.
I believe that she's really rattled by this. Sure, let's assume this, but they are forcing her to go back to do this really dangerous thing that's so personal to her, right?
Yes.
let's put it this way. Maybe the intention was to get this stuff all along to bring it back to the FEMA center. Maybe this whole frickin' vulture thing is bullshit. Maybe they're not a traveling crazy amount of nomads. Maybe it's like what we said in the beginning of the episode. What's the point of all this stuff? All the fluorescent lights, all the hinges.
Yeah.
Could they have been gearing all along to take over the stadium?
Maybe that's what they were doing, just kind of planning.
Full of shit.
I don't know.
Because, I mean, I could see a use for all that hoarder shit at the stadium.
Hoarders.
Yeah. Doors, hinges, bells, lights, light bulbs. Remember what Strand was saying about that store? Picked clean, you know, the stands, the shelves, whatever. So, you know, maybe they were trying to plan a community out and they found the spot that happened to have been taken. I don't know, man. Maybe this narrative is built. So, who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah. You know, if it wasn't for what she said, I have to go back.
Uh-huh.
You know, and even then, her trying to go back and away from John Dory, what does she have to go back to?
Well, right. I mean, that's the question. It's like, going back to what? Going back to who? We've established that your daughter died, so that's not the case. And I sincerely believe that really did happen. So, what are you going back to?
Right. Why do you have to go back anywhere? So, right?
Yeah, no, I am not clear on that.
You have to realize something. I hadn't even thought of writing this down, blah, blah, blah. But, like, the more you were talking, the more I'm realizing, oh, wait a minute. We have some other facts here that we're not really contending with. And
yeah, no, it's true.
You feel like you're getting more from Naomi, but it's not enough because it's like when somebody asks you a question about something, they give you a little bit of an answer, but then they completely pivot and they don't really answer what you were asking.
Right.
And that's Naomi right now. That's the question mark. That is her.
Yeah.
I believe the kid's real. I just think there's something bigger going on here.
I believe so. I think that there's something bigger that she's being very tight-lipped about.
I'm kind of really psyched now. I'm like, ooh.
No, I am too. Like, I am very psyched to see like how this whole thing unravels.
And maybe you're right. Maybe she is really, really important to understanding this entire season.
She very well might be.
Goosebumps.
Yeah, I mean, she probably knows what happened to Madison.
Who knows?
Who
really?
knows?
I'm not saying I don't care about Madison. I'm just saying, oh my God, forget about Madison. She can take care of herself. Now let's talk about Naomi. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, exactly.
Man, I don't know. We have to put this down for a minute because this is huge.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Because there's a point at which, okay, we've laid as much as we can so far on the table, and now we have to keep going with the story because what's going on here is that she's going at it alone.
Yes.
And Madison says specifically to her when she says, you know, so first of all, she says, look, you could have gone at any point. We'll let you. Alicia says the same. You're flaking out again, huh? And Madison says something. She says, nobody goes at it alone. You know, that's not something you do. You know, why? And so, end of the day, Strand and Madison decide to go along with her. There's no sense in you going alone. It doesn't make sense, no matter what. And they do this little road trippy thing, and they do find that inn where they find the vending machine, and they stay the night. It's late, you know, the FEMA shelter's far away.
They even had like a nice little...
They're going glamping?
yeah, I was gonna say something along those lines. They got a nice little setup there, you know.
Yeah. The scene that they find in the office, the inn office, right, where they find out that the two walkers had died because they shot each other over a can of beans, right?
Yeah.
Now that's really, really, really important to this story, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I think the idea of these two people fighting over food really hits Madison hard. I think this is what really starts planting the just in case scene at the end where she tells Alicia to do what basically Strand did, you know, have this just in case car.
Yes.
Yeah, and especially like when the FEMA shelter has the same thing. But I think this whole idea starts with the two walkers in the inn because if you really, really think about it, I think Mel has started to get into her head that you don't know what people are capable of. And Strand even tries to remind her of that. Like, you don't know what people are capable of when backed into a corner.
Yes.
And God forbid any of them get to that point, it may be out of her hands.
Right.
And so when she sees these two people, it's like, you know, it's such a shame, you know, and then like, wait, you know, maybe these people, they were together, and they obviously were. It sounds like they shot each other and they were friends or something maybe, and they were just came down to the last can of beans or two, and damn it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? So, but I don't know, I just thought that was very interesting, because it does tie into this idea of you don't know what people are going to do. They may leave, they may do something desperate, and then what Mel says at the end of the episode, and it's kind of like, what? And this is where things start to get a little intense.
Yes.
Because it's like Strand has said, when she first approached him, he really pushed her. Why did you save me? I'm an asshole. This and that.
Yeah.
And then you could have just left me. I would have. The reason why that's important, why he keeps pushing her for answers, is because at a certain point, they kind of have to ask Naomi, what's your deal, man?
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
Why? What is the deal with this FEMA center? Why did you leave? What happened?
Mm-hmm,
and the first thing she says is like, I don't want to talk about it. And
I was like, that's not going to fly.
And they're looking at each other the same way. They're like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, this is not the time to try to keep things to yourself.
Like, bitch, please.
Exactly.
And then Strand goes in on her.
He was livid.
And you know why?
Yeah.
What's the thing that I always say? Is that you hate the most in others, the thing you hate in yourself.
It's a mirror.
Yeah.
It's a mirror to yourself.
And you're going to go in on that because you hate that about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Calls her a coward.
He did, of all people, to talk about pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah.
So I was like, really, dude? Really? But
really? Where's that pebble?
Yeah, exactly. Where's that pebble?
Why don't you rub that pebble a little bit? Yeah, that's right. I thought so.
It's so crazy, like the chasm between like what's been going on, because before we go back to the now, I feel like it ends on such a kind of chipper note. Yay, we came back from the center. We got all these things. We're going to start the water going.
Oh, and the vultures walk away.
Yeah, and they walk away.
Like, that's it. Let's back it up, boys.
Yeah, they're like, okay, let's back it up.
Don't you wish the saviors were like that?
That's what's so interesting.
I messed with the wrong group.
That's what I find so interesting, you know? It is.
It's almost like as if it was a dream. Like, oh, hey, yeah, oh. And then everybody wakes up and then everybody's dead.
Well, that's part of the reason why it's so interesting. It's just the fact that like these guys just sort of are this looming presence, like a dog waiting for you to drop like something so that they can go and eat it, you know?
Right. But
there's no...
Let your guard down, right?
We're used to Negan and other bad guys like the governor or whatever just reveling in people's misery. They just do.
I will dance on the bones of my enemies. Yes. That kind of attitude.
Yes. And I don't get that from the Vultures.
No, I don't either. I you know what? If you had to put a gun to my head, honestly, I think they're playing at another level.
Yeah, for sure.
I think they try this method of playing chess, really. And I really do think they think it's going to work.
Isn't it?
Yeah, they're playing these moves of non-violence or non-threateningness. Mm-hmm. I think they're really doing a good job, and even I think the whole move to get out is another move, you know. And again, there's the Naomi factor, like what's going on here, right? So I know we're jumping around a little bit and we're jumping to the end, but Madison is convinced. She is got the binoculars out. She is not 100% certain about this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, she's like, don't ask me why. Prepare that Land Rover with all the just in case stuff. Something doesn't smell right here.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, it can't be this easy.
Yeah.
Nobody does this.
Yeah. No, it's true.
I was in Mexico, for God's sake. That shit was real.
That was real.
These freaking hipsters with their hoarding and stuff and their weenies.
That's what, yeah, they're such hipsters. I'm sorry.
This Burning Man.
That's hipsters. Honestly, that's one of the reasons why it's hard to take them really seriously as a formidable opponent. I'm like, you guys look like such weenies.
Yeah, but maybe that's the whole thing too. Like they do this to kind of make people underestimate them, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I see, that's the thing. That's what's so great about the unknown. It's like it's like Mel says, the real bad stuff happens when you least expect it.
Yep.
He warns her all the way.
Yep.
I really don't like you, Kevin Zegers.
Yeah.
But I really, really do.
I do. But he definitely gives me Garrett vibes. Gareth.
Yeah, that's right, Gareth. Andrew West. A little bit. Andrew West was creepy.
Yeah, you
like
think.
Kevin Zegers. Honestly, though, that's what really gets me, is that you could almost mistake his attitude for almost friendliness, in the sense where I'm just going to tell it to you like it is. You want in, that's cool.
Yeah.
You don't want in, look, it's your loss.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. And maybe where Negan kind of outmaneuvered our protagonist group, let's say, and also dominated by force. You know, this guy maybe is playing the game on a level that we're really not privy to.
Right.
And he knows it. And he says this in, like, I think it was the second episode. He says, you just haven't been tested yet.
Yes.
Like, really tested. And that's the thing about what these guys have been saying, is that we're dropping all these hints, guys. You got to pick this up. We're leaving little Easter eggs as to what is really going on, you know? And so we're not leaving you in the dark here. We're telling you exactly what's going on.
Yes.
But you're still not going to see it coming.
No, you're not going to be able to see what's coming.
Oh my God.
Whatever the hell that is.
Yeah. So after that whole confrontation with Naomi, Strand takes the keys from her, takes the Land Rover keys, and then we find out the next day she hotwires another car, you know, just to get away. And again, it's kind of like this whole, you know, what's the deal, right?
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't have to do that, but she does.
Yeah.
And if you really take her at her word, maybe she's going there to right her wrongs. You know, maybe she's trying to do it for the group.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's never made clear.
Yeah. At the end, when they do save her from the FEMA shelter, she says, I felt like I had to do this as maybe a type of atonement for what I did to these people at the FEMA camp. She's like, keeping the stadium afloat, I thought maybe would offset and maybe help me live with it. You know, she says something to that effect.
Yeah. No, you're right. You are right.
But again, feels like if she didn't have to go back there, have to, like somebody made her do it, then maybe she would have never done that.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, before she leaves the next day, she does admit that she's a coward, and Strand really goes in. She goes, so we should thank you for showing us who you really are,
right?
Which is exactly what he did to Cole.
Yes.
Like Cole's like, I should thank you for showing me who you really are.
That's a very good.
What I'm really getting into here.
That's a good question. Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like Strand is really saying this about himself. Like, he doesn't forgive himself, no. So why should
he expect otherwise?
You? Yeah. Why should we expect to forgive you for showing us who you really are? You know, why should we trust you?
Right.
Hence the keys.
Exactly.
Something that Strand says when they're on the way to the FEMA camp to catch up with Naomi. All the stuff about the map. Should we trust the map even? How do we know? And he's basically hammering Madison for forgiving him. It's like, why can't you accept the fact that some people can't be saved?
Right.
She's like, all that stuff's in the past. You can work on now. It's never too late.
Yeah.
And that's when he finally admits that he held the car for safekeeping. It wasn't something he found. It's something that he had planned for in case things went bad. And then he says this really perfect line. He says, when Preston cornered, the artifice falls and the curtain drops. They always show who they really are. And he's talking about Naomi, but he's really talking about himself. If it was me, I wouldn't have saved me. And Madison goes, well, it's a good thing I'm not you.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there were numerous people that felt the same way. They would not necessarily have been so accommodating and so helpful at all.
It does make you wonder if we're ever going to see like a scene or the scene that changed Madison's attitude. It's almost, it's like we were saying about Negan.
You think that her attitude?
It's as if we have to see that scene.
Yeah,
right?
No, I think we do. We do need to understand where the tide turned, what happened. And once that changed, or her mentality changed, that it's like, okay, I can't save everybody. And I have to kind of look out for the best of my people. I don't know. I don't know what Madison's reaction is. We don't know if Madison's alive. That's the thing.
Oh, yeah.
If she just disappeared and we don't know her whereabouts, we don't know how the effects of what transpired affected her. And that'll be very interesting.
From back then, you're
saying?
From
back then, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will say one thing. There is a sneak peek. In the sneak peek, we do see something. And it's kind of exciting to me in a way, because it makes me think that, something is going on with Madison after this episode. Yeah. I mean, especially with the just-in-case car, her changing her attitude just a little bit. I'm sure she wants to still try to save as many people as possible. Like, again, like the same kind of attitude of like, let's invite Mel and the Vultures in. Maybe, you know, they're not beyond, no one's gone till they're gone.
Right.
So, but I do see a sort of tweak to that, maybe even a reversion, but we'll definitely get to that. Definitely, because I do want to talk about it. But the whole FEMA thing, it's really just a lot of suspense and action and her seeing the bodies. And by the way, there is something to be said about seeing the corpses of dead children. on this episode, by the way, and then the drawings on the wall just a second later.
Well, yeah, that brought her to not to her knees, but it basically floored her.
It almost floored me. I was just like, oh my God.
That is truly the horrific. And not that everything else isn't horrific, but there's something about the element of incorporating children in that kind of environment that takes the horror to another level. I mean, it
like hits home a little, right?
Even season 1, episode 1, I think it was episode 1.
Oh, yeah, with the kid?
Yeah.
The face?
Yeah. that was kind of creepy. It's like, oh, little girl. And little girl turns around and is a little walker child. I mean, it's just, it's creepy as fuck.
But I have to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Like, look, you have kids too. Is there a part of you that kind of gets wrapped into that a little bit?
Did you internalize it?
Yeah, a little bit. I wonder. Or maybe
I do.
Look, for all I know.
No, for sure. Like,
you could say no too. By the way. It's like, I don't think of my kids when I see this.
No, I do, and I say that not just in terms of this show, but I say that in general to anything that's, if it's effectively done. No, I mean, not everything. It's
nothing's perfect.
Nothing's perfect, and not everything's going to make me like automatically think of my kids in relation to it. But when I do see some of this stuff, it's like, I do think like, oh man, I automatically kind of think about it like, if it were me in that role, if it were my child that didn't make it or something like that, I would be racked with guilt and torturing myself, putting myself through the ringer for not having done more, at least in my mind, not feeling that I did enough to prevent this situation from happening. Yeah, those kind of scenes are definitely pretty creepy. I think there was a scene actually in Walking Dead, Dr. Denise, and I think it was the episode where she got killed, when she got shot through the eye, which was one of the most shocking deaths, actually.
Yeah.
I feel like I was talking to somebody about that, about the element of surprise, and I was like, that death was one of those.
Yeah, you were talking to me.
Was it?
Like Nick, like how Nick died.
That arguably, like, the death of Nick to me was more shocking than Carl.
Right, and the sudden complete loss of a character's potential.
Yeah.
Denise, she was on this growth period of being this doctor, right?
Yeah, and
we were really getting invested
and
in
she
her.
was going through this monologue, kind of coming to this point and whatever, and just like that.
Yeah, exactly that point too, right? Like talking about how things were changing.
Yeah, and it was that was shocking. But I want to say that in that episode, Rosita, Daryl, and her came across to someplace. I mean, they were scavenging, they were looking, and they were
coming across the tracks at some point.
They were coming across the tracks. They went into some sort of building, and this is just on the kids thing that I think that it was kind of like too much for Denise, and she ended up stepping out or had to run out. And I want to say that they came across like a woman who had trapped herself in a closet, or a water closet, like a slop sink, but obviously she died and had turned, and you saw that she had kind of like eaten her child, or something. It was something like that was just really like, I for some reason I remember that, and I was
like macabre, like, oh my god.
Yeah, I remember that, and I was like,
oh, that's something that really got you.
Yeah.
And by the way, that was probably like around the time you had your first kid or second kid.
Oh, it's a blur, man. Yeah, no,
am I right?
No, you're probably right. Like, I definitely
second kid.
It could be. Negan hadn't been introduced yet, so this was Negan was introduced in season 7, right? Or arguably
just before season 7.
Arguably the end of season 6, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this was season 6. This was definitely season 6, because this was Dwight.
And how old is your second kid?
He will be 3 in November, and we will be.
This is accurate.
Yes, because we'll be in season 9 come the fall.
Yep.
So there you go. 3 years, 6. Yeah.
That little postpartum moment.
Oh God! Look at us being all analytical here.
Shoot, I'm glad I asked this question.
You deep diving, man. Good on you.
I'm gonna tear you apart.
Good on you.
Tear you apart, Carol.
Yeah. And it's not just fear or Walking Dead. It could be anything. Like, I mean, and you can internalize it. So you automatically put yourself in that position, and you're just like, gosh, oof.
Yeah, but you know what? Let's drill down on that a little bit, because there's this one moment where she sees the bodies of the dead children on the floor.
Yeah.
She looks at the drawings on the wall. She buckles and she drops And so when I watch the scene, there's a part of me that, of course, feels it a little bit. But then there's this other screaming part at me is like, are you crazy? Are you effing kidding me?
Yeah.
But then I wanted to know, wait a minute, what did this maybe resonate a little bit more with Carol? Like, did she like completely understand this weak moment, even though there's danger all around her?
I think certain things will bring you to your knees in that sense. And I think we've seen it with other characters too. Like, I mean, Carol seeing Sophia, come out of there. Like, I mean, your all rationale goes out the fucking window. Like,
that's true. You know who I thought about?
Who?
Father Gabriel.
Father Gabriel?
When I saw his reaction to seeing his practitioners, I think it was in this one building or whatever.
Okay.
He recognized the woman in the librarian glasses and stuff. Do you remember that one scene in that one building, the flooded basement scene?
Yes.
Clearly recognizable.
Yes.
And having confronted her, there was the way he acted, the way Seth Gilliam acted out that scene, just complete terrified, and you could feel the thoughts in the back of his head of reliving the fact that he had to lock out his practitioners and now he's confronted with one of them, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That actually instantly brought me back to what he did. The thing that he did that caused this. And I kind of tried to I brought it back to that scene. I was like, okay, I get it. I was frustrated. I was like, what are you doing?
Right.
Don't do that.
Right.
Man. So I really kind of had to do that because part of me was really
No, it's true. All sense of rationale goes out the window in those moments where it's like, what the hell are you doing? But in her mind, she needed to come face to face with what she did. And I guess this was it, but it was obviously a very reckless kind of decision.
I think she knew it would be bad, but I think she really, really underestimated how bad it would be.
Right. I agree. I don't think that she understood the full scope. And also, I think that she is almost kind of like walking the line on suicidal in a way. She doesn't care so much about herself in certain points. If something happens to her, oh well,
Right. I mean, I actually wrote this in my notes and then I actually erased it. And I'd said, I feel like she's going here to die.
Right. I think so. I think that
or die trying at the very least.
The human spirit is that you're always going to resist it. You're always going to, fight to survive. But I think there was a part of her that was sort of resigned herself that this very well might happen. And if it does, then it is what it is. And I'm okay with that.
Or that maybe even like Strand got to her in a way or something. Or, and again, we can always go back to the idea that she's like a vulture plant, like Charlie. But you could also argue that maybe Strand's harsh words at the end, you're a coward, and it really pushed her over the edge to try to do more, to try to, I'm going to do this or die trying. At least I want to show them that, at least with my last act, and maybe to make it up to these people, I could try to do some sort of act of selflessness, or I don't know.
Right.
But you see that she just can't do it too.
No.
Like, she, at some point, because of her buckling and being confronted with this horror, she alerts the other walkers, and it's really dangerous.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That was so scary. That was tense.
By the way, I had remember that whole scene with Sam?
God.
Right. It made me feel like that. Like, these people were going out there with the guts and the tarps and the whatever, and then, they're surrounded and they're trying to get out, and it's that feeling, and you see Sam as being spazzy and whatever. And then she can't, and she's being the same, not the same way, but she can't pull the trigger. She just can't do it. She sees all these people, and it's her fault. And she can't really do anything about it. And you're feeling, oh my God, this is a Sam moment. Oh my God, this is a Sam moment.
I was confident, obviously, that she was going to make it out of this zombie horde situation, but that was a close call.
It was looking a bit
dire.
Shaky. Yeah, exactly. Like, I was reliving that Sam moment. I was like, oh, no.
I was like, oh.
Don't call out for Mom.
Oh, boy, this is not looking good. But Strand and Madison show up in the nick of time and basically kind of devise an almost sort of...
and this is Strand's plan, by the way.
It was.
This is what makes it very important, is that after giving it to her that way, that's the thing. That's what really stands out. It goes back to what you asked me about before, about how Strand is like, he's like a very shaky character.
Right.
But when it came down to it, Madison was right. Like, I know you.
Yeah, no.
I know your heart. I know you've changed.
Yeah.
As a result of this thing.
And she was right. And he basically, it was his plan basically to be able to lead her into safety and get her out of that situation. He sort of makeshift zip line.
Right. It's the best zipline adventure ever.
Oh God, talk about oof. Yeah, and they managed to get her to safety, and and in turn, she basically leads them to the
just in case car, the truck,
that has all the seeds and
the
plants, and I think they had instructions too on how to grow, like just everything.
Yeah,
also,
the whole.
Do you have a go bag by any, like, speaking of this sort of stuff, or like?
Oh, diapers! I have diapers in there. No, just kidding. So hold on. Now you're asking me if I have it's a bug out bag. That's what it's called. Yeah, I was trying to remember what the exact term is.
I might just use marker and put on the handles JIC just in case.
Oh my God.
Put on the other one
JSS.
Just survive somehow.
Right, and I wrote that down in my notes. I'm like, JIC, JSS?
I know.
Oh my God, where's the connection?
I know.
PPP?
I'm still trying to figure that one out. But it's going to come to me one day, and I'm going to call you at 4 o'clock in the morning, I figured it out.
Maybe it's something, by the way, it's something he said in the episode to Tara, but
maybe
we just didn't pick up on it. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know.
But wait, so before you get to that, by the way, when I asked you about your kid...
Yes.
I was thinking the entire time, you take this concept of, okay, I'm forcing Carol to picture her kid in this situation, and then I'm like, oh my God, but wait, we just got through the beginning part of the episode, her talking about her fear about apocalypses, and it's like, oh my God, am I really forcing Carol to put her kid in her worst fear?
We're going to sit here and we're going to go through some nice, shock therapy.
I'm such an asshole.
No, because I choose to sit and put myself through this and watch these shows because I enjoy it. But
because clearly this is my life.
Because I enjoy this every moment.
The payoff is great.
The payoff is great. But no, I mean, I do think about that kind of stuff.
But do you have a bug out bag?
I do. Because,
it sounds like you do.
Well, yes, because now that we're in the state of Florida and we went through our first hurricane last season, and we were scrambling because. I mean, we didn't have to evacuate, but basically,
we were encouraged.
We were encouraged to, so we did.
Oh my God!
But the thing is, after that point, I was like, you know what? We need to be prepared just in case JIC something ever happens.
Does Eddie think you're crazy? Or?
Well, I basically took it upon myself, and I kind of have a very utilitarian sort of camping book bag that I use. And I put all sort of important documents and passports in Ziploc bags. So in case they get wet, the documents are still preserved. And I have all this first aid equipment in there, cash, gold jewelry in case metal is seriously.
Oh, wow.
The only thing missing from that bag is basically a weapon. That's the only thing that's missing.
Right. That's the limit. Your limit.
That's the only thing.
But now, look, oh my God, you're getting in my head now. I mean, I know I live in New York, the liberal sort of bastion.
No, I bleed blue. I still bleed blue.
But no, well, I mean, it's different demographic. You live where you live, and it's a completely different landscape, interpersonally, socially, politically, whatever.
Yeah,
it's just there's some things you just can't escape when you live in New York City. You could argue that some people do walk around with a Bowie knife or something like that, and
potentially,
you
you
never know, right?
I can't even imagine.
I could see most people not doing that.
No,
that's what I mean.
No, I imagine most people not in New York.
Yeah,
I imagine most people do here.
Yes, that's exactly my point.
Yeah.
So I think the circle is going to have to complete for you.
I can't.
And now I'm starting to think for myself. That's you're getting in my head.
I can't even imagine. I am one of those people that I've never held a weapon in my life.
You mean a firearm or just any sort of knife of any kind?
Anything. Okay. Any firearm, weapon, nothing. I mean, even when we were reviewing, Walking Dead, and we had all the theories about Eugene and making the bullets and whatever. I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know the first thing about
firing a gun,
defective shells, and whatever. I don't know. I'm like, this is all speculation on my part. I don't know anything about this. So yeah, that's as far as my go bag is concerned. But it's funny because when I had it all done, I went to the living room to Eddie and my mom, and I told them, I was like, look, just letting you know, I put together this bag. If I'm not here and shit hits the fan, you take that bag. You go.
And you go. If they take me down, this is yours.
This is yours. You take that bag and you go. It's got everything.
This is gonna come back to me, right?
Oh my God. You knew about it.
I gotta have a talk with Dave. This is just too much. You guys, this podcast is over.
Yeah, this is she's just, it's taking her to another level.
Yeah, if you're doing the podcast from a bunker somewhere, just because you're lying to Eddie and saying,
you know what's
no, this podcast is over.
You know, some people are really intense about that. Not about the bunkers, but it was funny because I worked at different places, and when I was in New York, I worked for one company, and there was this guy who was an architect like me. He had an architectural background, but he was so eclectic in his interests, and he was a DJ on the side, a good DJ. He had extensive music collection, all of that, but he was also obsessed with like wilderness survival.
Oh wow.
He took this course that was led by some kind of retired army sergeant, you know what I mean, like that, on like how to survive,
like a survivalist,
like a survivalist,
I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. By the way, do you watch the show on Discovery, Naked and Afraid?
I've watched a couple episodes. Yeah,
it's the best show in the world.
I was kind of like, seems a bit extreme to me, but no, the one thing that I saw that I kind of is fairly consistent is some of the first things some of these people do is get make clothing or whatever it is. It's kind of like when I first watched MMA. I was like, oh, really? People are going to beat the crap out of each other? And I'm like, oh, wait, I get it. There's a bit of respect. It's the same thing when I watch Naked and Afraid. It's like, okay, they're being smart. They're covering the precious bits and stuff.
No, they're smart about it, but it's just, it's always so fascinating to me, the thing that more often than not is what causes them to tap out. It's not hunger, it's not thirst, it's bug bites. And more often than not, it's the person who's super confident that they can survive, they can do this, they've done this, they can do it, and it's like 2 days into it, 3 days into it, they're like, I'm out.
Yeah. Well, it makes you think, though, right?
Yeah, no, it does. But you're allowed to bring one item of your choice.
Right.
So it's like, for me, I remember like we were talking about this. It's like
flamethrower. Okay, sorry.
No, I would bring netting, because you could use it to catch fish.
Like fish,
and also use it as protection at night to sleep from insects and mosquitoes and things of that sort.
You can make a nice little dress out of it.
You could do that too if you want to. Yeah, see, there you go. But yeah, no, I have a just in case bag.
Wow.
I don't have a just in case Range Rover, but I have a just in case bag.
Were that we all had a just in case Range Rover, just like $100,000.
I know,
truck.
Exactly. It's like I have just a truck, just like it's in the garage, just in case.
Yeah, it's just in case. I call it just the plates say just in case JIC,
just in case,
or just in case.
Oh, do you know that there's a wrestler named that? I think that's his name. Like
just in case.
No, Incredible. That's his name. Just Incredible.
I'm gonna call you that from now on. You're just incredible.
Just incredible,
Carolina.
Oh God. Yeah.
Oh man. What I kind of just want to close on with is that you're getting in my head, and it's I live in New York City, and I can easily see the idea of people wanting to leave each other alone and just stay in their own little bubble, even though we're completely crowded, turning on each other and getting all tribal and hysterical and starting to create little mobs and stuff like that, and looting and okay, now it's in my head.
Now it's in your head.
It's like the beginning of
anarchy,
of how Fear the Walking Dead starts in LA as they're going through the motions.
And that's how a lot of it starts with a lot of the kind of zombies genre movies, is that sort of kind of chaos. I think when you say that, it also reminds me of World War Z.
Okay, which I didn't watch, but I was very interested in. But
similar, kind of circumstances and all of that. I've never seen. I purposely haven't seen it because it sounds like it would scare the living bejesus out of me.
They seem a lot more agile and hive-minded.
Yeah.
In World War Z. Yeah.
But that's part of the reason why I haven't seen this movie. What's it called?
28 Days Later.
Yes.
And that's, I was kind of going to go there because I think 28 Days Later, it's like the perfect middle ground between of that kind of suspense, like where it's like it was a person and it's this rage virus or whatever it's called.
Right. It's almost like a kind of rabies kind of like.
Yeah. It hits a little bit closer to home because it's. The suspension of belief is kind of it's not as prevalent in that kind of series. It's a little bit more gritty. It's a little bit more, I guess, maybe believable.
Yeah.
Which kind of does lend to your fear of outbreaks.
That's what I'm saying. Like when it's like that, where it's kind of believable. That to me is the most horrifying sort of scenario, which is why for everything I heard about 28 days later, I'm like, yeah, I can't watch that.
You know what we should? You know what though? Okay, here's a good activity that we can do. Is that during the break, maybe we could do that. Maybe we can watch. I think there's 3 of the movies or 2 of the movies. I can't remember which, but we can do that. I think we should do that.
I think we should.
And I think we should find a way to do this together somehow. Maybe do like reaction video that I can edit.
Reaction videos are the best.
And I'll be like, oh no, we did not do that.
Meanwhile, I'm gonna like, all you'll see are like my eyes. It's like I'm gonna have like
like wide open, like saucers.
Exactly.
And then I'll like poke you and you won't move and I'll be like, oh no, I think we broke it.
I do think I've come a long way, I will say. I definitely was a lot more squeamish when it came to some of this stuff. I remember going to like a haunted house 5 years ago.
Ooh, yeah.
And that thing scared the hell out of me. Now I look back at that and I'm like, meh. But for some reason at the time, for some reason at the time, it scared the hell out of me. And I was talking to my husband, to Eddie, about it. And I was like, you remember that time? And he was like, yeah, it's kind of funny because you watch people get like completely like decimated on this show. And I was like, yeah, right?
You wouldn't think.
But when I thought about it, I wasn't into Walking Dead as much at that time because I wasn't one of those people that started at like season 1, episode 1. I was people that came in and like binged, I want to say seasons 1 through 4, I think it was, seasons 1 through 4. And then we came in fresh at like around 5 or so. Yeah, 5, I would say. So yeah, I binged a lot of craziness and it desensitized me, I guess.
Right. You've been inoculated.
There you go.
You took your course of vaccinations.
Yeah.
And you were prepared for the next haunted house.
I will say though, there was something scarier about watching episodes of Walking Dead when I was in New York than when I'm here.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because
why do you say that?
Because where we lived in New York is, remember, we lived outside of the city. We lived upstate. We lived in the woods, actually.
Oh, that's right. I remember. It was still New York, right?
It was still New York, but the thing is that I would say it was like borderline rural because it was, for those who are familiar, Rockland County, which is past Westchester. And the particular area where we were in, we had like almost an acre of like forest behind us.
Wow.
And that's all it was. It was just like forest and like train tracks, like abandoned train tracks, which added to the eeriness. Yes.
Oh my God.
Which added to the eeriness. So you imagine binging and watching freaking The Road to Terminus. You like live in an area where it's like super quiet other than deer, train tracks and forests. It kind of added to the creepiness. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But you know what? Here's a shotgun question. If you ever had to live out in that sort of area again, would you then start to consider like, oh, maybe I should have like a shotgun or like a rifle or something like that? Because now it kind of begs the question. This really would push you, I think.
I would.
Because the police, I mean, I know Rockland, it's still kind of an accessible area.
Yeah, I know it is.
It's a big county.
It's a big county. It is. It's just that I look at it as I grew up in the city where it was urban. And where I am now, I would say it's very much suburban, where you have houses right next to each other.
They're closer together, right? In Florida, the place where you live.
If you ever saw the show Weeds, the theme song, like little boxes,
like a planned suburban.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
where you lived before, though.
But where I lived before, it was very spread out. I mean,
sparse.
It was like, I mean, you had homes, but there was a generous size distance between each home. So you wouldn't necessarily look out your window and see like, hey neighbor, not necessarily, because you got enough space and there's a lot of trees, and so you had that cloak of privacy. Plus we were on a cul-de-sac, so no cars are really going to go down there unless they have a reason to. Like, they're not just going to go through for traffic purposes or
God, this is creeping me out.
Yeah. And that's how it was, which was fine. But imagine binging like Walking Dead
several seasons
in a row, episode after episode after episode, while you're living in these circumstances. I mean, it added to that kind of creepiness, which was kind of cool.
Right. Well, yeah.
It added to the, to the ambiance.
Right. So then, I suppose if you had to do it all over again, would you get like a firearm of some kind? Because I know that we bleed blue.
I'm just so fearful of that sort of stuff, and I just like I said, I've never touched one in my life, and I don't think I've ever known anybody with one, to be honest with you.
Right. Well, because you grew up in the city.
I grew up blue.
Yeah. Well, less blue, but like you're in an urban area.
Yeah.
And with access to police.
Right.
You know, out there, it's not as quick.
No, I mean, no, it is.
I'm feeding your fear here.
I know you are. I know. Luckily, I'm not in a position right now where I feel that I need it.
Yeah.
So
I don't feel the need to answer because I'm never going to go back there.
It's a wonderful area, but we had very good law enforcement friends in case needed.
Okay.
I'm like,
okay. So you would probably just call their direct cell numbers.
I would just call their direct cell. Yeah.
But what if the phone didn't work, Carol?
I know. I just
like those scary movies.
I know. Well, that's the thing. Some people.
I'll tell you outright. I just to get my answer, I would probably do it. I would never use it, but it would just be one of those things where it's like I would have to have it at some point, I think.
Listen, it is legit in that area, specifically because there were also a lot of just animals in terms of like bears, deer, wild turkeys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
These wild turkeys were intense too. They could fly.
Yeah.
Get on the roof of your house.
Holy mackerel.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and then you imagine like, okay, what's on the roof of my house?
Yeah, turkey. Take a
But
picture.
Between you and me, do you have like a fantastical mind where your mind goes places?
Yes.
Because my mind would try to rationalize, be like, oh, no, it's probably just a rodent of some kind. But then in the back of my mind, it'd be like, it's gonna kill you.
Yeah,
whatever it is.
No, it would freak me out. Like the turkeys are like, because they have crazy eyes, like.
You don't know what's behind those eyes.
No, and
that's why they're called wild turkeys.
And it's gang mentality too. It's like they get together as like a little flock. And yeah, there was on the news one time. I don't know if it was.
I have to worry about turkeys now, not just people.
Yeah, there was. I don't know if it was in Indiana or somewhere in the Midwest, or there was this area of like the town that was not getting their mail because these turkeys were like scaring off the mailman, and they're like, I'm not going there because these turkeys keep attacking me every time I go. I mean, yeah, they're intense. Ostriches too.
Oh, good. Well, yeah, I know about ostriches. I just didn't think they were like social animals, but now you're telling me otherwise.
I was in a petting zoo with an ostrich in Australia, and it scared the shit out of me.
It's a good thing those fuckers are endangered.
Are they really?
I think maybe, or maybe they were at some point, but I don't know.
They also have crazy eyes, and they're tall.
Though they just look angry. They look very angry. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Very intense. Oh, God.
Squawking dead.
Yeah,
huh?
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. There you have it.
I need to get back to this because I don't want to think about this anymore.
We're horrifying ourselves.
Yeah, vultures, huh?
Yeah. Here we go.
Worry about zombie vultures.
Here we go. So we seem like we're in a good place. That's the thing that makes it so striking. It's like, okay, here's the Range Rover. Strand smiles at Naomi, kind of like, okay, I get it. I understand. I was there. And it's like, okay, it's understood. We understand each other. We come back with all these supplies. The Vultures pack up and leave. And only Madison still seems to be apprehensive. Everybody else seems to be like, okay, yeah, we can work with this. We can do this. Everybody's all smiles.
Everybody else is drinking the Kool-Aid.
Drinking the Kool-Aid. She's the only one.
Madison's is wearing off.
Yeah, Madison is the one that's not convinced, and I guess for good reason. And she's the one who tells Alicia to just pack up this stuff in the Range Rover just in case. Right.
And so I kind of want to get into that, and I will jump from here and also to the sneak peek that I saw. Now, I know you haven't really watched everything straight through, but the behavior that we're sort of seeing between Madison and Alicia is similar to what we would see in the past. The way Madison has known to have been to operate is that she hedges her bets, likes to be able to control the situation, so she will make moves to create little chess moves, let's say, of her own to try to make sure that safeguard, first of all, her babies, but also make sure she's in control of the situation, tries to
have the upper hand.
She tries to set things in motion just in case things go sideways. Not like Strand does. Strand likes dominance, likes to control the situation in an overt way. Madison likes to set certain things in motion to kind of be able to tug on certain strings to make sure things kind of go along the way that she wants to expect them to. And I think maybe she's starting to revert to maybe in a smaller way this kind of behavior. And the reason why I think that, not just because of this, because of that alone I can understand the whole just in case card. You see it at the FEMA camp, it's a good idea, why don't we do that? Maybe Strand isn't crazy, but it does kind of hail back to, if shit goes down, I want to be able to take Nick and Alicia at the very least and get the hell out of Dodge, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Now, I'm not willing to go that route. I'm willing to say, okay, maybe it's just a precautionary measure of some kind. I don't know. Who knows what it would be for, but or maybe it would be for somebody else in case this place fell. Somebody else can find this place out like the FEMA camp and then be able to survive a little longer. But that aside, what makes me think further is the sneak peek that we see. It's these like quick scenes at the end of the episode about what to expect in the next one. Now, it's this really quick scene where she's pointing a gun at the camera. Okay, so she's picked up a weapon and at somebody, and she says this in almost kind of a snide sort of way. You know, no one's gone till they're gone. Now, when she says this in this season, she's been saying it in more of a positive sense, like, okay,
like
no one's gone till they're gone.
Parents and all that,
and Strand's not gone till he's gone. You know, Naomi.
True.
When they meet Naomi, she does everything in her power to kind of make her feel comfortable, make her feel like, look, you have no reason to feel threatened. I'm going to give you all the chance in the world. If you want to join us, please. I know you acted aggressively towards me, but, you know, no one's gone till they're gone, right? But in this scene, what she does, it's more of kind of like a, you know, no one's gone till they're gone unless I make them gone. That's the sort of way I read that quick scene. So it makes me think something is changing in Madison. Maybe there's a reversion. Maybe she doesn't trust Mel, or if that's what it comes down to. Maybe Madison is the reason for the fall.
Do you think that Madison could ever become evil, or be potentially evil, or no?
Well, that's the thing about Madison, is that she has done rough things in the name of keeping her baby safe, or keeping herself safe, as the case goes with her backstory, which is something that she told Alicia and Nick when it came down to explaining some of the things with her family life. And
yes.
Yeah, from way back when she was a child, teenager. Yeah. So there is something to that. She had to do some pretty rough stuff with Broke Jaw Ranch people and with Troy, manipulate him in a way. It's kind of like trying to tame a wild Rottweiler, you know, to be your guard dog. You know, it's like, Madison, you may not be playing the best card, but she's going to try to do that because she thinks she knows what she's doing, and she's going to try to get a bad thing on her side so that she can attack whoever's trying to get her babies, you know? So it's kind of like Strand in a way, where she's doing it out of the goodness of trying to keep everybody safe, but it's like playing with fire, you know? And maybe this is part of her embracing, no one's gone till they're gone until I make you gone, you know, that sort of thing. Like, you know, I'm not letting you threaten this place, that sort of thing. So.
Right.
So I wonder. I really do wonder. I didn't even think that until I saw that one scene. I'm like, wait, she's saying this a little bit weird and holding a gun. So, well, what do you think? I mean, I know you're kind of coming into this from the outside, but
I don't know. I'm not totally sold on her as a pure protagonist for the reasons that you have kind of mentioned. Like, she could have caused this downfall. What happened at the stadium. The only thing that stops me from completely thinking that is just Nick's visceral reaction when he saw the car and Ennis, which makes me feel that something happened towards Madison that they had some sort of connection to.
Right.
But,
and Alicia too, I guess, right?
And Alicia too, yeah. I mean, yeah, they all seem to, but it just still, the question is, you know, obviously, like, we don't know what necessarily happened to her,
or what she maybe even did, right?
Or what she did, or what her involvement was. I'm hoping that by the time we get halfway through the season, we'll have a better idea of basically, is Madison alive or dead?
Yeah,
just that basic.
I think the thing that eats away at both of us is the idea that it just seems like it's too inevitable that Madison is dead.
I think it's too easy and too much of a cop-out to be like, oh, well, she died. It's like, oh.
Or it's too obvious.
Or it's
kind
too
of like,
obvious, yeah. So it's like
how could it be that she's dead? The way they're pointing us, they're saying, hey, she's dead. Hey, I'm telling you she's dead.
Yeah, it's like, nope, there's got to be more to it than that. Which is what always makes me think, like, you know, could you have turned to the dark side? Or were you a participant, a willing participant in the downfall of this stadium? I don't know.
You know what it's a lot like? It's like that friend that tries to throw you a surprise party, but he just says too many things you're not supposed to know, but he says, it's not a surprise party. Get out of here. You know, it's
Right.
like, okay, now I know it's a surprise party.
Yeah, because now you're really kind of, yeah.
Yeah, it feels like that's what the showrunners are trying to say to us. It's like, oh, it's not a surprise party. But meanwhile, it's kind of like, well, now you're being too obvious. So now I'm not even sure that it is a surprise party.
Right.
You know, like maybe there's nothing. And shows seem to do that a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it's that they point you in a certain direction, then they misdirect you. So now it's like, now I can't be sure because now it's that 50% dilemma where it's like, okay, now she could be dead and she could not be dead because the evidence is pointing too much that she's dead, so now I'm not thinking she's dead.
Right, I'm not going to go.
But now, if I'm not
obvious.
thinking she's dead, it's really frustrating.
Speaking of frustration, and
this is exactly where they want us.
Yeah, and speaking of frustration and not knowing and being led down a particular road and what have you.
Oh yes,
maybe
that's a good segue.
Maybe we should talk about
The Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead and the story that leaked. Apparently. Did you say that JDM leaked it? Is that what happened?
No.
Okay.
So what I heard, we heard this from the Hollywood Reporter.
Okay.
Yes. So at least that's where I got it from. I got it really early.
From the Hollywood Reporter, and I think
it's the same way we found out about Lauren Cohan's
whiskey
season sign on.
Yeah.
You know, how she was trying to renegotiate her contract, but she kind of wanted to walk away. I think they ended up working it out, if I'm not mistaken.
But she's only going to be in, I think, similar 6 or 9 episodes only, or something along those lines.
Beyond the disputes, I don't know what ended up happening.
I don't know either. Like, I thought that they had resolved everything and it was a done deal.
I did too.
But it seems like she's also kind of being phased. They call it phased out, whatever the hell that means.
Yeah, like Nick was being phased out.
Quite a phase out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're still seeing him, obviously.
We are.
But, yeah.
We are. That is a very good point.
See, this whole Andrew Lincoln thing is a very interesting thing. Having him.
It is a very interesting conundrum that they are in, and I was racking my brain trying to think of any shows that I could remember where the lead actor left and they were able to successfully keep going, and that is a very tough mountain to climb, because the only show that I could think of, and I can't even really call it a fair comparison, was Game of Thrones when they killed off Ned Stark in like season 1, when I thought oh, this is the main character. Oh no, my bad, I guess not. But
no, well, I mean, they did that with Cliff Curtis, Travis on Fear the Walking Dead. You would have thought that he was maybe going to be a main character, but I think second season, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, at the helicopter scene. Done.
Right. But then the thing is that at least like 1 season, 2 seasons in, 9 seasons in, almost a decade into this show. I mean, that's the thing. We're almost a decade into this show. That's a long time.
Yeah, and especially when you open the show with this character, you would think that this character would be the one to
end it.
Hold your hand.
This is the one who's going to hold your hand through it, and it's going to be the one to hold your hand when it closes out. So I wonder, like, when on their part they knew that this was happening. Was this something that was just kind of discussed recently? Is this something that they knew before filming, that this was going to happen? Because that obviously would affect how they approach the story.
Well, it seems to me, just from what I was reading, is that Andrew Lincoln is the one who kind of initiated that, or that was the impression that I got, is that he was, for sure. I want to leave the show.
Right.
But then I wonder, Nick style. All these English people, like, really? You can't hack it? You can't hack the Hollywood circuit?
Yeah. I think also, honestly, I'm sure they're probably seeing Denai Guerrera like raking in like the accolades and the big bucks doing movies. You know,
he wants to get back to film, you're saying?
I think so. And I think that he's kind of like made comments towards that, and with the idea that it's like he would like to take on some like movie projects and things like that have been offered to him. But you know, Walking Dead is such a time commitment, and really hasn't taken on anything else. He doesn't do any other kind of side projects or anything like that. He's strictly Rick Grimes.
Right. It's probably like a strict emotional restriction too. I mean, he seems like he puts in a lot into this character.
It's a very physical job too. You're in the Georgia heat. It's a lot of action. It's a lot of emotion. It's not a walk in the park.
No, yeah.
So,
I mean, Garrett Dillahunt mentions it as much when we see him on Talking Dead and some of the behind the scenes. He does explain how rigorous, how physically, it takes a lot out out of it.
It is. So, I mean, imagine that for 10 years.
Yeah.
My understanding is that all his family is overseas in England. So, look, I get it. What I just am more concerned about is
the story.
Is the story, and how are you going to effectively do this? Because I mean, they're talking a good game on like, no, you know, the story is going to be this, and we're going to focus on this, and stepping on Norman Reedus. And okay, look, I have said,
oh yeah, like stepping up Norman Reedus's role, right, in the show.
Here's my thing. You know that we talked about.
They really didn't even have to say that, by the way. Like, I didn't need to know that.
I don't need to know that. But the thing is, it's like I already, like we've talked about this before. I have been very vocal about complaining how they have not given the Daryl character enough. He grunts, snorts, makes some sort of like cool stunt, and then, you know, that's it. And we are all like, woohoo, okay, cool, you know. But he hasn't had a substantial line or monologue in years, literally years. Like, I feel like the last time he did was probably during the time of the governor, when Merle was still around and they had that sort of like family brother kind of conflict
drama.
Yeah, you know, like there was some compelling stuff there. After that,
and memes.
What?
And memes too.
Oh my god, the memes. Yeah,
the crying memes. Oh my god. I feel bad. It was such a good goddamn scene.
It was such a good scene. But the thing is that like after that, he became like an action star, you know, really, for the show.
Yeah, I felt like they were trying to do something with Ross Marquand. I know it's something I mentioned before, but then, yeah, that kind of got away from everybody when things started getting dark.
Yeah.
Like with starting with the Wolves.
Yeah. He became this sort of action star where it's after the prison, I think about Terminus, you know, and he was like a straight up Rambo.
Which, I mean, is fine.
Which is fine.
Not to come back to that, right?
But the thing is, like, no, he hasn't... They haven't really given him much since then in terms of substance, in terms of plot. Which, okay, you want to give him more, totally on board with that.
Now you think they're giving him too much?
Well, I think it's a lot of pressure.
It's a shoulder, yeah.
It's to basically say, like, okay, man, we're resting this show on you. Fans love you, which is true. He has, I would argue to say that he probably has a bigger fan base than Andrew Lincoln. People go
I would
nuts.
agree. I mean, people probably hate the Rick character by now.
In
some ways.
I think so.
Most people, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I'm very curious to see how it works, because I do think that people have become sort of tired and frustrated with the Rick character. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but it's a very tricky,
Ricky Dicky.
It's a very tricky road. I mean, essentially,
I'm kind of excited though.
I'm excited.
Do you know what I mean?
And to be perfectly honest, from a ratings perspective, you know that people are going to tune in just because now there's going to be this sense of
there's going to be a shit show.
Exactly. It's like yeah, I do that all the time. I watch many credible quality shows, including, you know, Fear the Walking Dead and Walking Dead, but I love me some shit shows because it makes me feel incredibly wonderful about my life and every decision I've ever made.
Right.
But I tune into it because I'm like, this is going to be a mess. And I'm going to sit on my couch with a glass of wine and I'm going to watch
It's like the best of both worlds right now. Yeah. What you've got going on right now. But do you think maybe that... I'm going to ask this even though I know the answer is no, but do you think that maybe that some of this is, I don't know, maybe manufactured kind of controversy or... I know the answer is no, but maybe there's a thing in the back of my head that's saying maybe they're making this public.
All publicity is good publicity. I mean,
exactly.
I think it's twofold. I don't know how they're going to write Rick off the show, right? But however they have decided or will decide to do it, the shock value isn't going to be as much because we know now that he's leaving.
Yeah, we want to know how the Titanic sinks.
Had it not leaked and had this not come out, that would have probably been the most shocking moment ever. We've been lulled into this sense of security of like, well, nothing's ever happened to Rick. And what happens if we're watching season 9 and all of a sudden Rick gets killed off and we're like, oh shit, they finally did it.
So would you prefer to find out ahead of time, or would you have preferred to be shocked by it? Part of me, I think most of me is thinking, well, I would have rather not known.
I would have rather not known.
I almost thought you were going to choose the other one, actually, considering the whole Negan killing off Glenn and Abraham
That was a little different in the sense that, like,
is it though?
Well, I guess for me, like with the whole Negan thing, I knew already, because I'd read the comic, how incredibly vicious that was going to be.
Was, right.
Even though I was very much, for the most part, desensitized to quite a bit, I realized for myself that I have a very hard time dealing with
those kinds of scenes, you're saying?
Like the human suffering.
Something we were saying before?
The human suffering aspect. I think that, like, if you're talking about killing bad guys or a bunch of zombies, walkers, whatever, it's like, I guess in my mind, I rationalize it either as, one, they had it coming, or two, it's fantasy. And so,
or I don't care about them
or
as much.
I don't care. But a character like Glenn and Abraham, or characters like Glenn and Abraham, that were arguably the heart of the show.
The moral compasses.
And just, the mouthpieces that were just straightforward and honest and sincere. To have them killed off in such a way, and I knew how it was going to happen based on the comic, assuming that it was going to go down the same way, I was like, I need to prepare myself for this, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch this go down, if it's going to go down as viciously as it's supposed to, because it's going to break my heart and I'm going to be traumatized for weeks. And it was like between that and the election, I was like traumatized for weeks. Literally, it was like back to back.
Right, and so you take it back. You take it back to Andrew Lincoln. It's kind of like, well, we're in this Carl situation where we are listening to what people are saying. Mm-hmm. The overall impression, and maybe it has seeped into us, is that Rick as a character, there's an element of, we would want to see him carry us through, but there's also that other factor of, okay, we've seen some pretty nasty things on his end. Right. As good as he probably is ultimately. Yeah. There's that factor. It's, I'm going to say this, and this is going to be a little bit controversial, but I don't like going the political route, but there is that kind of element when you talk about, let's say, Hillary Clinton, right. Let's say. Mm-hmm. It's like, as good as she probably is, right?
There's some evil there, too.
We've seen, well, that's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. We've seen too much. She's been in public life a little too long. Right. So we see some of the not-so-savory parts. Mm-hmm. And just on that merit alone, I don't want to even get into the ins and outs and all that stuff and the details, but the argument is there, and it's a valid one, that when somebody's around too long, right, they have a history. Yes. And that there is that baggage. Yes. And so you transpose that to Rick Grimes. There is that similar feeling. Yeah. We've seen too much baggage. We've seen too many bad moves. Yeah.
A lot of too many decisions.
Killing the porch stick, the extents that he's had to go, the limits that he's had to break in order to protect people, like questionable limits. Yeah. So again, you could say that maybe there is an element of potential suddenly being lost had we not known. Mm-hmm. And I am glad you said that it would have been better had I not known. Because then I would actually be shocked.
I would have been shocked. Like I said, we get lulled into this sense of security that our heroes are going to be fine. Because they usually are. And so...
Well, and that some of our more flawed heroes, we feel like you rob them a chance of getting more brownie points, as a result. It's same with Carl in a way, too. He brings the rest of the group to the new world, and maybe that's sweet on its own, but you kind of wanted... It's like Moses. You kind of wanted him to join them.
I never agreed.
And take on that role.
I never agreed with, like, the killing off of Carl, because I don't think that the payoff was...
Like, we didn't get to feel it.
I don't think...
in a way.
I didn't feel the payoff in terms of killing him off. The death of Glenn and Abraham was the battle cry for them fighting back against the saviors. Okay, that I understand. And it's constantly revisited when they revisit the graves, and Sasha and Rosita like going on their kamikaze missions and stuff like that. I mean, and it's all coming from what happened to Glenn and Abraham. It all
they're not forgotten.
They're not forgotten, and it's
Maga's reaction at the end.
It's always
too.
Oh, so that broke my heart.
Brutal.
And it's like, and that it's always there. It's always present. And I just didn't feel that same way with the death of Carl. I'm like, I don't feel that the payoff is great. I think it would have been a greater payoff for him to have been around and to have kind of been part of this new world or new beginning that they were going into.
Right.
I don't know how they're going to work this out. I'm going to be very curious to see. I mean, I think that they said he's around for 6 episodes. So once they get up to episode 6, I'm going to be like a hawk sitting on the couch, like.
Yeah, this is the jumping off point where it's like, okay, all right, now we know he's safe for 6 episodes, just like Lauren Cohan.
Exactly, for 6 episodes. What happens in episode 9?
And we'll be watching all the way to like episode 16, and like this is the episode 16. He's got to be gone here.
6 episodes.
We've seen all 15.
It's like where is it happening?
We lost Maggie in episode 13. Today's the day,
Today's
Rick.
the day. This is when it's happening. Let me prepare myself.
Oh my God.
I am very dubious about how it's going to work with Daryl at the helm, because you know what the thing is? It's like Daryl is the right-hand man, and he doesn't have that same kind of presence. He's cool and he's awesome, but it's like there's some intangible quality that a leading man has in terms of presence, and I can't put my finger on what it is. And that's why I say it's like it's presence. It's some intangible quality that when they're there, they overshadow everybody else who's there. They just have this sort of presence about them.
Well, they have like a weight to them.
They have a weight to them, but it's not like a stature thing.
Well, no, it's like a gravity.
Yeah, because Andrew Lincoln's not some like huge dude or anything like that. It's not like a stature thing. It's Negan has presence.
Similar, yeah.
And I feel that he's gonna also, whether they say it or not, is gonna have to be a much more integral part of it. I mean, I even threw it out there to somebody. I was like, well, if we left off last season with this sort of potential civil war to go on, you know?
Right. And this is what I was going to drill down to, is that, like, I don't even know if we can talk about Norman Reedus's gravity on the show without addressing, and this is what makes it more interesting to me, is that we see this jumping off point of these three characters, like Jesus,
Maggie, and Daryl.
And then knowing what we know now behind the scenes, there's a journey there.
Right.
Maybe. So that's the thing.
It depends.
It screws up the whole process of where we're surprised how things turn. Like, there's got to be a turning around where Daryl turns around and says, you know, fuck you, Maggie.
Or
like,
what if... This is a big
now I'm
what
against
if.
you sort of thing. Okay.
But this is a big what if. What if the whole
impetus
for this civil war is that Rick and Michonne decide that Negan should live, right? They feel like, you know, that is the civil thing to do. It's the humane thing to do. We're not just going to continue to live this barbaric lifestyle. And on Maggie, Jesus, and Daryl's part, they don't agree with that. It's like, nope.
Right.
Negan should be killed. He should not be allowed to live, blah, blah. So what if this civil war, that this conflict does end up happening, and all because of Rick and Michonne's decision to let Negan live? What if Rick dies at the hands of Daryl and Negan becomes more of a protagonist because his ability to live is because of Rick?
Right.
You know?
And I was thinking more of that as well. But what really screws my brain up is that was there emphasis on Daryl taking on a bigger role? Because we haven't heard of any news that Jeffrey Dean Morgan is going to have the bigger role. You know what I mean? There's no.
I wonder if
there was no mention of that. So I was kind of like
mention of it, and I wonder if that's been on like I don't trust these people right now.
Well, the only positive news that I see out of this is that I do enjoy the thought of, now that they're saying that Daryl's going to have a bigger role. I mean, they're not saying what kind of role, like as a bad guy or good. I automatically thought good guy for some reason because. And if that's the case, there's a journey. You know, there's a crossing of sides where at first he was against Rick and Michonne and that whole philosophy, and probably most people's philosophies. There's a switching of sides. Something happens in between where maybe Maggie ends up killing Rick, and then Daryl's kind of like, wait, no, this isn't what was supposed to happen. And then he suddenly turns. And so if there's that sort of an arc, I'm interested. But it's like we can't even address the gravity issue because now there's this journey. And so I can believe that because there's a journey to getting there.
There are also
if he's a bad guy.
There are also some that say that eliminating Rick Grimes or Andrew Lincoln doesn't necessarily mean that you kill off the character. Some people speculate that you could potentially write him out in a way where, because remember, Alexandria is decimated, you know, the war's over. Alexandria has been torched and decimated. The kingdom has been ransacked and whatever. Like, everybody's in a rebuilding kind of stage, right? So it could be a situation where Rick feels he needs to stay wherever because he can't live with the.
You're saying like he goes out Morgan style, basically, just leaves.
Yeah, that you basically like write him off in a sense where he kind of goes off on his own sort of discovery journey, whatever, and it leaves the possibility always there that if you do want this character to come back, like you can. I mean, Heath too. You kind of did the same thing with Heath. Heath could pop in tomorrow, and it's totally fair game. So they they could potentially do something like that too. Write him out in a way where he steps away from all of this, but it doesn't mean that he's dead. And because Rick is a survivor, you know that he's probably going to be just fine.
I can't imagine how that would work.
I don't know either, but it's...
Because it doesn't change the whole idea of him not being the closer, you know? Like, it should open with him, it should close with him. Now, again, this doesn't really bother me so much, really. A little bit, but on the other hand, it kind of almost intrigues me a little bit. I'll be honest, I had assumed that season 9 might be the last season, but if you're talking about writing a character off the show, well, then we're coming from a position of, okay, there's going to be another season after season 9.
Yeah, and the way they talk is as if that's their mindset. That
because then why bother talking about it at all, right?
Exactly. So it's like, to me,
they would just say it, right?
Right, because to me it sounds like they're already sort of insinuating that there is going to be, at the very least, a season 10. So I don't know necessarily what that means for how this story is going to play out. In my mind, I see, well, obviously Daryl, because that's what they seem to confirm, is going to play a bigger role. I have to imagine Carol will too, and Negan. Some people say that they would love to see a Daryl, Carol, Bonnie, Clyde sort of.
I think that road's been.
I think
that carpet's been run over too a little bit too much.
Too. I think like the people have to let go of the Daryl, Carol sort of thing. That's not happening.
I agree.
It's like, stop trying to make it happen. It's not.
Don't force it.
Don't force it. You know, I always said, it's like, I really had been hoping in my mind that they would give the next comic book story arc that has this sort of romantic relationship. I was hoping that they would give it to Daryl before I heard any of this stuff.
Right.
I was hoping it would be given to him, because I felt, okay, that makes sense. I could see it working since Carl's not in the picture anymore. If you're going to give that storyline to anybody, I feel like that would work with him. But I don't know if you can, well,
considering a lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe, but I do think that they should give more screen time to Negan. I'm not being biased here.
No, you are.
I am biased.
But it also makes sense.
But it makes sense.
Having Negan take over for Rick.
If Rick is not in the picture anymore, Negan and Rick had a sort of mutual respect. That was another thing that I think I was looking online, and there was some website that had like the 6 possible ways that you could write out Rick Grimes, and I think one of them said, it's like, would you have Negan kill Rick? I'm like, I hadn't really thought about that. But I don't.
Seems a bit overdone.
I think it'd be overdone to be like, I thought that we were done with this.
I think it would trigger us.
Yeah.
Trigger our PTSD in a way. Like, oh no, let's not revisit that all at once.
Let's not revisit that. We're done with that.
Yeah, I think that's the worst taste in your mouth.
I don't think so. But
do you want to know what I think though?
He's gonna die of a walker bite.
No, God, Carl. But the only thing that I can think of that makes sense is the rejoining of Fear the Walking Dead to The Walking Dead. There has to be some, and I don't really enjoy the idea of getting into details, because
what do you mean,
like,
rejoining?
I think there needs to be like a reunification of some kind, like the two worlds.
Of the two worlds. I mean, listen, I have my feelings on how I want that to happen. I agree.
I really just want it to happen so that if you are going to close out one series, you might as well close out the other.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do it,
in epic,
find out weave a big story arc.
Do it in epic fashion. I mean, this is kind of why I asked you, like, do you think that Madison...
Because of the alpha theory you had thought of the other episode?
Because of the alpha theory. Like, I was watching this episode and I see these conversations between Alpha... Oh my God, I'm calling her Alpha already.
You can, that's fine. Between Madison... Okay, sorry.
Between Madison and Strand, and I see Alpha and Beta. Like, I look at that and I'm just like, this really looks like Alpha and Beta. Like, I know.
Well, how about this?
And to me, it's like, if you wanted to go out in epic fashion, then that's how you would do it. If you wanted to close out both series and you wanted to bring them together, you can have one show be the backstory of our heroes, which is typical how every story has been, and then this story be the story of how you get to become this villain, you know, quote unquote villain. And everything has been leading up to this moment, and the worlds collide, and then the story plays out as it plays out. But that to me
I like the idea.
I like the idea, especially if they're already thinking, look, we have an end game for this. They talk all the time how they seem to have this end game in mind, whatever the hell that is. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'll tell you what I want, because hearing this news now, and we thought of the alpha beta theory, I think it was 2 episodes ago, I think, if I'm not mistaken, about Madison and Strand. Now that we know that Andrew Lincoln is, and maybe even Lauren Cohan is leaving, this does leave things open enough for me to want, and I'm saying I want this, is I actually want Madison and Strand to be protagonists.
Okay.
I would want the reverse to happen.
Okay.
I would want the Walking Dead crew to go bad. I would rather the Walking Dead crew go bad, and then the Fear characters be the good ones, based on what I'm seeing right now, because I do see a positive spin. It does kind of go back to the whole sudden loss of potential sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
And then also combining that with the quote-unquote Hillary Clinton baggage. Like, there's too much dirt on The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And I would care a little bit more about Madison and Strand falling from grace at this point because of their struggles also, and less baggage, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then I would rather them come into the show and say, hey, what are you guys doing, sort of thing, and like, after all you've been through, and then of course many people will rally on the good side, and then where some people go bad on The Walking Dead. I mean, I would much rather see the reverse. Like, I would much rather see, let's say, Madison take over for Rick, to be perfectly honest. In some ways, Madison she has a way more sympathetic background to me.
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree.
Than Rick. You know, just from the jump from her history that we know more of, let's say. Whereas with Rick, I mean, all the history that we know is from the time he wakes up from the hospital, technically.
Yes.
You know, and a little bit of him being an officer and getting shot, but we don't really know too much about his background.
No, we don't.
You know, whereas with Madison, we kind of get that in a bag of chips because we've seen the pre-apocalypse of Madison. You know, the guidance counselor. You know, so there is that. We see that from Strand a little bit because we see him encounter some of his past people. You know, people that he's run across and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's more to care about.
Yeah.
I would say. So what I would want is I would want them to be protagonists. I would want them, if the worlds merge, I would prefer for Madison, Strand, anybody who's left over, let's say. And of course, now this is pending what we end up finding out, if Madison is alive or not.
Yeah.
And let's say she's gone. I would rather Alicia, and see, that's the thing now. Is, okay, now if, let's say Madison is out of the picture, this does change things for me in my mind, because if we're now talking about Alicia, Strand, and Luciana,
I'm not a fan.
You know, because if I see Madison going, I also maybe see Strand going, or going really, really bad. But I don't want to see him go bad. It's just too obvious. It's like you've come too far to slide down to a certain level. But I can definitely see Alicia going really dark, and it would make more sense to me. A kid losing that kind of guidance, going up, going down, going back up really high, and then coming back really far down to the point where she shot Naomi, and bring it back to the episode. That, to me, makes more sense, and it's almost like a sympathetic bad guy. With Madison, I wouldn't buy it as much as Alicia. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. And even maybe, like, I don't know what would happen to Luciana, and that could be a good tie-in. Like, she could join up with the Walking Dead crew and then try to fight Alicia, and that would be rough, but we would watch the shit out of that.
Yeah.
Nick's sister. So, you know, her sister-in-law, technically, quote-unquote. So.
Yeah.
There's always people scouting Atlanta when they're filming for clues. The drones are going to be out in force.
Oh my God. It's going to be like Ride of the Valkyries, which, by the way, was playing in this episode.
Yes, it
in
was.
The parking lot.
It was. I noticed that, yeah.
We were like playing games with the walker. So it's going to be like that with drones, basically.
Oh my God. They better prepare themselves, because they already were like that during the whole Negan introduction, when they wanted to figure out like who was getting killed. And I mean, they were ravenous.
Annoying.
So with this, forget it. They're going to be all over Atlanta for any sort of signs of how potentially this is going down.
Oh man. And you know what? I already know too much.
I know, that's the thing. We already know too much. We already know that, okay, for sure these two characters are leaving. So how is this going to happen?
Right, and then with every clue that we're going to get via like Instagram caps or something, it's kind of like my perceptions are already colored in a way. I'm already interested in knowing how they get from point A to point Z. So to get K and then N and then Q along the way, it's kind of like, now we're establishing a vector, and I really don't want that. I kind of just want to be able to enjoy at least the ride. Because if they do have a grand plan, I want to give them a chance to at least execute it.
It makes me think of when Beth was still alive and they had that Beth Daryl episode that they were
Yeah, I was thinking of that when we were talking about it earlier.
And Beth tells him, you're going to be the last man standing. And I wonder now, I'm like,
oh, shit.
I was like, I wonder if Daryl is going to be the last man standing. Like, he is going to be
like Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
this bitch.
Pretty much. Game of Thrones, this bitch, and it's going to be Daryl.
But Lori also said Carl would beat this world.
Yeah, well,
but Lori's a bitch.
Yeah,
whatever. I'm kidding.
Lori doesn't have any room to talk.
Yeah.
Well, and in truth...
Well, she was on her deathbed, but yeah.
That whole thing was very deceiving, too, because when they had all the clips for Carl's death, the way they made it seem is that he was saying that to Rick about, like, Mom thought I was going to beat this world. I'm not, but you will. And he was actually saying that to Judith.
Well, but in the process of Rick overhearing it and blah, 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 and that whole thing.
Yeah. Maybe it's Daryl and Judith. They're the last people standing.
Right. It's John Connor.
Little ass kicker, as he lovingly called her.
Maybe. That would be kind of sweet.
It would be fitting.
In a weird way. But then, what happens to everybody else, right?
We're like,
Michelle, no, we kind of like her.
I know.
At least.
I know.
And Jerry. Jerry. What happens to Jerry?
Give him more screen time. Give Jerry more screen time.
Here's another thing that I was kind of thinking of is that part of the criticism with these kinds of shows is that, the more you expand the cast of characters, the less you are focusing on them. And so...
That is very true.
Something's really going to have to happen, I think, maybe on the onset, first couple episodes or something, like to thin the herd. It would be horrible, but still.
No. I was talking to my friend about this. And
she listened to the show, because seriously.
I know, right?
Should I, shout her out, say, listen, bitch,
you know what the problem,
better be listening.
You know what the problem is? And I will tell you that this is the case with other podcasters, because I've heard them have similar complaints, that they have friends that they talk to, and they tell them, like, do you even listen to the show? No, do you even listen to the show? And they're like, no, why would I do that? I can just call you and talk to you. and that is
because of me. Hello.
And that is literally,
I'm like awesome.
I know, but I'm just telling you the mindset. Just saying.
All right, so listen, this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna tell her this. Listen, Dave says, listen, bitch, you better listen to the show because I'm fucking funny.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
And I really and just for the fact that I torture you, you should just tell her he really does torture me on the show. It's something you have to listen to.
That should be enough for her, right? It should be in theory.
Yeah.
No, but what I was going to
That's gonna be the headline for the show, by the way.
Headline.
It's like Dave tortures Carol. Let's do this.
Oh my god.
Emotionally.
So we were talking about this because whether this would have happened with Rick or not, regardless, I think that there was going to have to be a bit of a trimming of the fat because the cast is huge right now. And you can't really get into this in-depth plots because you're so giving a line here, giving a line there, giving a line here. It's not allowing you to really hone in and focus. And the reality is with the new impending threat that would be coming in. No, not Rick. Right. But the threat that, like,
the Whisperers,
that are supposed to come in. The introduction of Alpha, I tell people all the time, is basically The Walking Dead's Red Wedding.
Ooh.
It's a very shocking moment where like 12 main characters are killed off.
Holy schmackeries.
Like you said, it thins things out for sure.
Jerry?
And so, I mean, they have more than enough people right now that you could kill off 12 people. And it would be like, whoa, pretty damn shocking. But it is that moment that's in the comic, which is why a lot of people are like, when are you introducing these people? And they're waiting for that moment.
Right.
And so that's an opportunity where easily they could do that. I mean, I thought to myself, I'm like, would Rick be included in that 12 in those people? Like, I'm like, but
it would, yeah.
I feel like he would have to have his own moment if you're going to do that, and not just him be one of.
Right, because you would want to string that along as possible.
Right.
I think.
Right. Exactly. So I don't know necessarily. Like, I mean, there's plenty of ways they could do it, but I think the thinning of the herd will definitely happen. And I think that if they are going to introduce this new group, then that scene is going to have to happen.
It's going to have to be a red wedding scene.
It's going to have to happen because that's basically what people are waiting for.
Yeah.
It's not cool.
Yeah. It's not cool. Exactly like the red wedding. It was the killing off of A lot of hope.
A lot of hope.
Let's just put
exactly. That's exactly it. That's exactly what happens.
Yeah, and that's kind of like why I don't enjoy the idea of Madison being alpha also, or
her
even
being
the
responsible for that.
It just rubs me really, really the wrong way, honestly.
Yeah.
Alicia, I could see. I could see maybe a path there.
Being so angry and just
at the world.
Yeah. It's entirely possible. It'll be very interesting how they take it. And for all we know, it could be somebody completely new. It might have nothing to do with fear. It could be a brand new person who takes on that role. But I don't know, will Rick be alive when that happens? Will he have already been gone when that happens? We'll see.
Yeah, and you never know what's going to happen between now and the next time we record, right? So it's kind of like, and I think that's kind of where I think we need to leave off, is we should do the sneak peek now, because just to close out this idea of The Walking Dead Season 9, it's kind of like, we have other episodes. We may or may not hear more news, and we're going to probably keep chipping away at theories, maybe based on maybe even what's happening on Fear the Walking Dead. But I feel like this conversation is not over.
No,
let's put it that way, and which is kind of fun.
I mean, honestly, this is basically, it's not as scientific as it was when Negan killed off 2 people and we were left hanging like who it was, and people were coming up with angles, camera angles, the trees, like.
No, and this is a lot more fun, too, because I like dealing with possibilities, not eventualities.
Right.
Oh, finding out who died is one pinpoint kind of idea to try to figure out.
It's like,
there's an endpoint. 2 people are dying, that's it. And then you don't know what's going to happen after that. But here, we kind of actually have an idea of what's going to happen, and not even necessarily who's going to bite it and what scenario. Like, we don't have that pinpointed scene where these 2 characters are pinned down, let's say. So to weave our own maybe tale of what's possible is very interesting, and it's evolving as news comes out, as maybe trying to transpose Fear the Walking Dead. I enjoy it.
I think
the only thing we need to be careful about is black hole conversations, where it's like we can only say so much, and I think I try not to go too far. When I have a good concrete idea to have fun with, I'll throw it out there, but then beyond that, it's kind of like, okay, well, I want to see what the vision is. Like, I want to see where they're going to go with this, because it's like, okay, well, that's all I really had. So let's, maybe next week we'll think of something else.
It's going to be very organic. We'll figure it out as it goes.
We've been pretty good.
We've been good, and I feel like there's going to be a lot of information coming out over the summer, and as the months go on, and we'll be piecing things together, keeping our eyes open. And more than that, we're going to keep our ideas open, our minds open, because I think that's more important than anything else. More important than anything else, And something to bear in mind also is, remember, come July, I want to say, is the San Diego Comic-Con, where they always release their full-length trailer for the upcoming season.
Oh, we're going to have to keep our eyes open there, too.
Consistently. They always do. Every July.
And so we're going to have to dedicate an episode just breaking
down the trailer.
Yes. By the way, you remember Matt, right? He actually came up with a really good idea, is that we should probably try to represent. Maybe from now we have to probably sign up for the San Diego Comic-Con or something, get a booth. I don't know. What an interesting idea.
Yeah.
It's like, I've never thought that this would be the direction we'd go. I don't know how intrigued I am by that. I would like the idea of maybe some sort of representation, like not like a booth, but maybe like a badge or like walking around.
Something to look into.
Yeah. And so in that respect, like, we can get some press passes, let's say, because we are kind of media, so it's kind of like, I used to do that with my old radio show. But
look at you.
But yeah, we can get into San Diego Comic-Con, we can watch the trailer, we can pick it apart, we can record it, but we won't play it.
I know. Exactly.
Not for rebroadcast, but just for notes.
Just for notes purposes and reference.
Yeah, and then we could break down each bit of the trailer, and then we can take our cumulative theories and
run with it,
transpose it onto this. And that would be fun. A fun thing to do during break.
Yeah, I mean that's meaty right there. That has a lot of substance.
Writing it down.
Right now.
I think we can leave off on one thing, and that's the 2 concepts. One is where the sneak peeks are leading us into is this huge, humongous firefight. Right after John gets shot, it seems as though there's this big, crazy ass firefight between just these 3 people and all of the entirety of the Vultures.
Yeah,
it's like a stormtrooper situation. situation.
I know.
Though.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and Alicia's got this super gun.
I know, right? What kind of...
Right?
It's like some space age kind of thing. I was looking at that and I was like, what in the world?
There's military grade and then there's space soldier.
Exactly. And that's what it looked like. Stormtrooper, space soldier, yes.
Yeah, it's like you took Dolph Lundgren's gun and put it in this little girl's hands or something.
Yeah, that's part of it too. Scale-wise, it's just sort of like...
Yeah, it's very cartoony.
Very cartoony.
But yeah, so you see this firefight, and the other concept is one of the bigger sneak peeks. The other stuff is not whatever. I did mention before the Mel was chained to a headboard, blah blah blah, and Naomi's there, and he gets out, and there's like this scene where he's threatening her with a knife. But the bigger reveal, it seems, and this was a crazy insight, because often on Talking Dead you get not a crap sneak peek, it's an extended sneak peek, but it's really not much.
Yeah.
But every now and again, maybe twice max a season of any kind, you will get like a really good meaty, like, wow, I can't believe they revealed this scene, and this was definitely one of them. So it starts off with Alicia towering over Naomi, and she goes, "We gave you a home and you took it," and then Naomi smacks her with like a fire hydrant of some kind.
Oh yeah.
And she gets away to John. She just sweeps over to Luciana, she bumps into Charlie, she has the shotgun pointing at Charlie, and Charlie says, "Sorry," and that's where it ends off. And so it makes you think, oh my god, what's...
Yeah.
I don't think she's gonna shoot Luciana,
Charlie. I don't think so.
And do you know why? Is because we see in another scene that Morgan has taken her to either Althea's van or a bus of some kind, and he is driving her to a location. He's basically saying, Charlie asks Morgan why he saved her, and Morgan says, because this has to stop someplace. And so I kind of like that idea, because maybe saving Charlie will somehow bring back some of those feelings of we have to, we were trying to save her originally, and maybe she didn't know any better. And it's very telling that Morgan is doing this, because Morgan did the same thing for Henry in a way and kind of failed a little bit, but maybe this is his chance to kind of do it right. Like, I get it now. You're a kid, you're young, you're gonna make mistakes.
Yeah,
it's gonna stick with you.
You don't need to be a part of this.
Yeah, and maybe pull a little bit of a Carol in a sense where Carol, what she was trying to do with Henry was trying to shield him from the world, when maybe she should have trusted him enough to kind of at least give him a little bit of rope. Yeah. And watch his back, but at least let him try to be this kind of kid in the apocalypse. Like, let him flex his muscles a little bit, because you can only do so much. Yeah. Do you think Morgan will revert, or do you think the trend of Morgan being healed by every little bit of confrontation, do you think that will continue?
I think that it'll continue.
I want to say that too.
I think it'll continue. I see Morgan as a sort of moral compass here, where these sides are filled with hurt, anguish, fighting. And you got to remember, like, Morgan doesn't have any sort of emotional attachment to anything that's going on here. You've got Mel upset because of... Yeah, I mean, he's basically a subjective third-party outsider to all of this. You have John Dory that obviously is emotionally invested with Naomi. The old crew that obviously has emotions invested in whatever the hell was that happened with Madison and the stadium. Mel and his crew that's upset about Ennis and maybe some other stuff. I don't know. Yeah. So everybody's kind of on edge, and they're emotionally on edge, like very emotionally invested, whereas he's not.
Or he has the chance to not be.
He has a chance not to be, because he's not emotionally invested in any of these people at all.
Well, how about John Dory? And this is kind of an important question.
John Dory, this relationship, I love the relationship between Morgan and John Dory, because it's almost like one of those, I feel like there was a song that was like that. It's like, you made me love you even though I didn't want to, or something like that. Morgan didn't want to be friends with John. He didn't want to be friendships. He wanted to be left alone. And despite all of his protesting, he, for all intents and purposes, is friends with John and cares about this man.
I'll say it over and over again. John Dory should have been the person that Morgan found. Like a well-meaning, well-intentioned, not damaged. Right. And continued to stick with kind of person. John giving him the guns, it's kind of a signal to Morgan that John would not try to drag Morgan down to his level.
Yeah, the way Rick did at the freaking bar.
Rick just encouraged it.
Yeah,
like knowing full well that he's seen him at his worst. Yeah, and then just said, hey, you got to fight for this anyway. Hey, you got to pick up a gun, you son of a bitch. And I'm like, really? This is not healthy. healthy.
Yeah.
He can handle it. I'm like, no, he can't.
No, he can't.
No, you son of a bitch.
And it's been that way since freaking season 5 or whenever it was, when Morgan showed up again after being away, and they bring him to Alexandria, and his first thing is to see Rick killing Porch Day.
Oh, yeah, that's where he comes in.
Yeah, that's where
Porch Day. Yeah,
that's where
was it the end of the season 2? End of season 4?
Might have been mid-season
5?
or end of the season. Maybe it was end of season. No, it was the end of the season. It was end of season 5, I want to say.
Yes, that makes sense. And then Morgan is the top of season 6.
Yeah. But he came in to see like that. That's where he comes in.
Yeah, the guy he saved.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to John Dory. It's
I love John Dory.
He sees the promise in John Dory. He sees the desire to not become a monster.
He sees the sincerity in John Dory. There's a sincerity there. His intentions are pure.
Yeah.
He loves this woman. He wants to be with her, and he wants to get to her. That's it.
Yeah. And the desire not to fall into these trappings. It's uncanny.
Yeah.
And he needs that. There's kind of an interesting saving grace that Nick was able to exit the show, or you know what I mean? Like, he was able to die in a sense. And that's the potential harmful relationship of getting involved with Nick. The opportunity opens it up to where Morgan doesn't have to deal with the pitfalls of having to deal with that kind of toxic behavior, or getting dragged down into it. Now he can just really focus, be reminded of the lost potential in Nick, be sad about it, the opportunity to really change him and have him come around to the side of Pete, which he was doing. Not successful with Alicia, but working with John, this well-intentioned man. Yeah. This guy who's actively trying to be a peacemaker, knowing full well right from wrong, confronting him about it, and then having John fess up about it at the end of Laura, that episode. Yeah. It's just refreshing for him, for us, and he needs that in his life. So it's now, with John's life being threatened the way it is right now, it's, again, I'm not saying Morgan's going to turn, or we're going to hit some trouble spots of him or anything like that. I still maintain that he's going to be, but you know what, there is a potential. So there's a potential for him to kind of go wrong.
There is always the potential.
Yeah, and therein lies our predicament, and I cannot wait to see this next episode. I mean, we're really... And this is the episode before the mid-season finale, right?
I think so.
So, I don't even know how long that break's going to be, if at all, or maybe?
I'm not sure.
God, it makes me wonder when we're going to hit that wall where, how long of a break are we going to have from Fear the Walking Dead to Walking Dead? Wow. Hey, it's going to be a good year for us.
Yeah. Got a lot of substance there.
Holla back. So, I guess with that, I mean, if that's all right, you got your bug out bag?
Yeah, bug out bag.
You're ready to go?
Just in case.
Just in case. Just survive somehow.
Just survive somehow, just in case.
But it's not enough. There's got to be something.
Oh, my God.
And with that, everybody, we'll catch you soon. Enjoy seeing Fear the Walking Dead episode 7?
Yes.
I think it is?
I think so.
And I guess we'll see you then, right?
Yep. See you then.
Take care, y'all.